And ready to go. Hot Mic with Hutton and Withrow is underway on this Wednesday edition. Glad you're with us here on the OutKick Network. Includes our YouTube channel where you can search out OutKick. We hope you'll go there. Subscribe. Join Chad in the chats. We stream live each and every day, 3 to 6 p.m. Eastern. On this great radio partner, we say thank you as well. Jam-packed show from 6th and Peabody with EHOP Beer and Old Smoky Moonshine. Former NFL tight end, longtime veteran in the NFL, Clay Harbor, will join us in 20 minutes. Trade deadline is coming up later this month. Running backs could be on the move and much more. There's a corner who is on the move back to his original team. Clay joins us in 20 minutes. Primary complaint always within the first hour of the Wednesday shows. Clay Travis also on each and every Wednesday with us. He's in hour 2 today. And then we get into the very latest around the Chicago Bears, the craziness with Justin Fields, and why we have not seen him continue the staircase climb and instead going the opposite direction. David Kaplan will join us, Chicago radio host, at the beginning of hour number 3, followed by Ryan Spader, longtime Major League Baseball analyst, longtime baseball historian and stats guru. We'll get his take on the postseason, plus the latest with Trevor Bauer. Chad, it is good to be back. Good afternoon.
Hutton, it is good to have you back. You were missed. I certainly missed you. And it's good to see your beautiful bearded face back with us here today.
Thanks for holding it down for me.
We've got, it was fun. I felt a little detached from the YouTube chat. You know, hosting, it was a little bit different in the YouTube chat, a little less interaction.
Tweeting, yeah.
But other than that, we had fun. Great job by our crew here in Nashville throughout. They're always doing a terrific job. Davey Hudson did a nice job filling in for a number of segments as well. Good guest list. That good guest list continues today, Hutton. I'm excited about today's show. And you haven't even had a chance to react to all the Trevor Bauer news that you were all over. Jonathan Hutton, by the way, was the first ever subscriber to the Trevor Bauer, what was it, a YouTube show?
It was the vlog.
The vlog. So it was a vlog that he did on YouTube, right? Is how you would watch it?
Yeah, but he would just, that's why he rubbed teammates the wrong way anywhere he was, because some didn't want the cameras, his phone rolling, or his video camera rolling behind the scenes in the clubhouse. But he took fans behind the scenes.
But you were enthralled by this thing. You were coming to me saying, you have to watch this.
Yeah,
it's incredible.
I mean, it was, because
this
Major
is
League
pre-sexual
Baseball,
assault allegation, by the way.
Yeah, yes. But like the inside baseball lingo and all of the behind the scenes chats and just the day-to-day operations of what he would do to get ready for, every 5th day being ready to hit the mound. Plus just if he got fined, he opened up the letter live to tape and then read it and showed you, and put cleats on that he was going to be fined for and said that, or just literally anything. And I loved it, Chad, because it was NFL Films type behind-the-scenes stuff that Major League Baseball just doesn't do and should be doing. That's why I was a fan of it. And I loved watching Bauer on the mound because it was progressing almost like a reality show. This has turned into that as we hit the top headlines of the day on Hot Mic with Hutton and Withrow with Trevor Bauer. So basically, we know the details, Chad. I know you played the audio from the video that he put out where it shows text messages between him and Lindsey Hill, the Accuser.
Well, and most of them are actually text messages between her and
a friend. But
yeah, different friends that she was texting with,
trying to extort him for as much money as possible. And a video that she took in bed the morning after, showing him asleep and her with no visible signs of any injuries on her face, and she has recently responded to everything that, well, not everything, that Bauer put out in this video on his own, but did have like a crazy surprise impromptu interview and chat with Alex Stein, primetime with Alex Stein, where she tries to defend herself but doesn't do it very well. Mentions the lighting issues for the bedroom not showing any blemishes, and more or less comes across as doing nothing but trying to extort a very wealthy baseball player in all of this. Crazy story, top to bottom. And, the permanent restraining order was denied, meaning that she couldn't move if she could not prove that she was in danger. And now Bauer's proving that the text messages will show that, in fact, no one was in danger. It was simply trying to get the most money possible.
Yeah, she went on the show with Alex Stein last night to respond to that 4-minute video from Trevor Bauer. She says it was taken out of context, that she has a crude sense of humor, that her friends know her that way. She was being sarcastic. Yes, she has a history with other Major League Baseball players, so when she's talking about, sinking her teeth or her grips into the player, she's joking about her history with that. Be that as it may, you can believe her or not, we all have, crude jokes with friends, I'm sure, that we wouldn't want posted. It does not look good for Lindsey Hill, especially the video that was posted. The thing that I keep coming back to is, if you were truly sexually assaulted, like you claim, and you sue, and then there's actually the lawsuit from the reason Trevor Bauer stated that he sued her was to go to discovery because he knew there would be text messages that would exonerate him from all of this. So he was going to fight the good fight, however long it took, and not pay her a dime. Hutton, to me, the fact that she settled for zero money in all of this, and he was allowed to tell his story and do this, tells me she didn't have much of a case. And in fact, odds are she probably made this up. And that's what, even on this Stein show, there was a sexual assault survivor who was blaming her, saying this makes it more difficult for other women who are legitimately in danger or have had something happen to them with what you're doing. Now, Hill goes on to say she did this and settled to step back, quote, step back and finally close this chapter of my life and let karma do the rest. She said, I just didn't know that it would reach this level of hate for me with a lot of people not asking questions or asking about the MLB arbitrator's ruling. The MLB investigation that initially lasted 10 months dealt with several different women, several different accusations, so I was not the only case that was presented in that. Quote, in this 4-minute video, the amount that is missing, sometimes I just want to scream. Have y'all not been paying attention to what's come out the last 2.5 years? That was from Hill in response
from her
to
phone?
What Trevor Bauer
that
released.
That would be my response. From your phone? Because if you're saying that he picked out 2 or 3 things to
show us the rest.
Go ahead.
Yeah.
And they've been hesitant and slow to turn over any of these. And you mentioned Sarah Fields, the survivor of domestic abuse, who was one of Stein's guests, put the most pressure on Lindsey Hill during this. She says, I don't have a whole lot of questions. The text messages are incredibly concerning. It doesn't seem like something that should be joked about. I'm not going to sit here and call you a liar because I don't think that would be appropriate. But what I will say is, if anybody ever accuses someone of something so horrific and it's not actually true, that would be the most disgusting thing. This man's career has been potentially and completely destroyed. His future has been completely stained. That bothers me as someone who's a domestic violence victim myself. I was myself accused of something I did not do, and that was horrific in itself. It caused trauma and PTSD, not just to me, but my entire family. And she goes on to say, not telling the truth because they're putting money over life belongs in a jail cell next to my ex-husband, end quote.
Yeah, and it does look like Hill put money over a lot. Knowing his net worth, talking about that, how much, her friend saying you need to secure that bag, all those different things. She also blames the lack of bruises and scratches on her face the next morning to bad lighting in the video. Saying, quote, that video was taken with no lights on in the room on Snapchat. It was taken and saved to the app. So a lot of differences between natural light and all that stuff. Any normal person can see that bruises will take time. That video was taken 4 hours after everything happened. I said this straight in my deposition. If you zoom in, the scratches are all there. You can't see if there's a shadow on my face.
Well,
that's from Hill.
And going back to just he's picking out 2 or 3 things here. You settled this for no money. You're getting your insurance policy, and that's it.
Yeah, she said she wants karma to take over now.
But it's just, it's sad that this can go on for 2.5 years. And 2 years later, Bauer can say, I can finally post this and show exactly what was going on, which was nothing in regards to the assault, and prove it based on her comments through text and another video that was that he can reference. And Chad, all the while, he's not in Major League Baseball. He's pitching in Japan, and he's the outcast of the league. The Dodgers booted him and then went after the remaining money that was on his contract, after the fully guaranteed money that he got up front for services or the signing bonus or whatever it was. It turns out, like, no one wanted to mention his name. You couldn't speak the name Trevor Bauer. And now all of a sudden, the person that should be treated that way is Lindsey Hill.
Well, and we're going to have Ryan Spader on later, and I know he was sort of on a crusade on social media yesterday to get people like Molly Knight, who's named in this lawsuit with The Athletic, who no longer works there, other people who basically said Trevor Bauer was absolutely guilty before any facts came out. He wants them to apologize or to say that they were wrong in saying that. It's not going to happen because then they're liable. We're not going to hear a word from Major League Baseball or the Dodgers on this. They're not going to come out and apologize to Trevor Bauer because then they might be owing some money to Trevor Bauer or be liable to a lawsuit from Trevor Bauer. So, look, unfortunately, what the right thing to do is if you just said, hey, this guy's absolutely guilty.
And he got money back.
And now it's pretty clear he's not.
Based on that suspension.
Yeah, then you should be able to come out and say, hey, I was wrong. I want to recant this, and then say, this is what happened. But that's not going to happen. It's not because people don't want to be liable for anything. And this is a situation that could continue to be very litigious moving forward with Trevor Bauer. And on top of all this, I hope he gets another chance. Sure. There's now actual baseball stories out there about different teams that could use Trevor Bauer.
Well, he's winning the Cy Young and then signs with L.A., and soon after that, all of this surfaces. And he's put on indefinite suspension through the commissioner of baseball, and now pitching in Japan. And that was it.
Well, and look, if it can be proven that she, without a doubt, just like I want everyone to, face the facts and a trial if need be and all that, she's allowed that as well. But if it can be proven in any way further than this, that she made this up to get money from him, to extort him, to do any of that, I hope she goes to jail. If it's proven.
And that should be the case for everyone that does this.
Yeah.
Because for those small instances and occurrences, it goes back to what Sarah Fields was saying as the guest of Alex Stein and telling her in the question, like, you don't want to call anyone a liar, but I'm sitting up here as a survivor of domestic violence and assault. And meanwhile, it seems false accusations. And it makes everyone else, either not pay enough attention moving forward because of instances like this, or not take it as serious as we should because of instances like this.
Yeah.
Instead of just immediately ousting someone and proclaiming them guilty until they can prove their innocence, it should be the other way around.
Absolutely. And look, I said this yesterday, that's she's now acknowledging those were her texts. But when that first comes out, I'm learning my lesson, we all are as we go, that in a deep fake world where people can post fake videos of Brian Ferentz of what he's saying and people can buy it as real.
That's a great point.
I don't know that that's her in those texts. It's not saying this is her phone number. This is absolutely her text when he's showing that video. So I made a point to say, look, this looks bad for Hill, but I don't know that what Trevor Bauer is showing 100% without a doubt is a text from her. Now, she admits to it on this show that she sent those things, but it was more locker room talk and not extortion. So we know now that was her, but there's a lot of lessons to be learned from all of this. And I also hate the fact that if she's lying, which it certainly looks like she is, based on her communication and her settling for no money, that this makes it harder for actual victims to come forward.
Well, yes.
Because
absolutely,
this is a high-profile case of a woman looking like she's trying to get money and lie about a man who didn't do anything wrong that we can see. That's bad. And it makes it harder for actual victims moving forward. And I hate that part of the story, too.
Same. Absolutely. Chad, the weekly appearance or the sometimes weekly appearance, whenever Aaron Rodgers wants to make it. It was Aaron Rodgers Tuesday yesterday on the Pat McAfee show, and Rodgers came on and recapped the Jets and Chiefs Sunday Night Football matchup and discussed Travis Kelce with a nickname.
didn't have a crazy game, and Mr. Pfizer, we kind of shut him down a little bit. He didn't have his like crazy impact game. Obviously he had some yards and stuff, but I felt like for the most part we played really tough on defense, especially the last 3 quarters.
There's Aaron Rodgers, who's been the most anti-vax and outspoken player in the league about this over the last couple of years, pointing out and calling him Mr. Pfizer. The Travis Kelce, who's on the Pfizer ads in the ad campaign, the push for another COVID booster. There are several in local markets, NFL vets who are doing this for the teams that they played for, pushing that narrative. And it's also, by the way, on ESPN with Pat McAfee, and that show is on a delay based on language and some
they allowed
F-bombs, and they allowed it.
And
that's
Pat
the big takeaway
McAfee
for me.
laughed. Pat McAfee, I'm watching the video, and he's cracking up as he hears that,
and
which
AJ
is funny
Hawk
to me.
Immediately is losing it too.
Chortling, like Vern Lundquist in the video. They're so excited. Now, here's the obvious thing that's the comeback that I've seen from a lot of people on the vax side, on the Pfizer side, that are saying, dude, you're taking $37 million from Johnson & Johnson. That's the owner of the New York Jets. So where do you think that money's coming from? Speaking of vaccinations, they also had a COVID-19 vax. Now, the difference is he's not out endorsing the Johnson & Johnson vax. He's taking a paycheck from the owner of the New York Jets that happens to be in that family. But
everyone's hypocritical in some way.
Hey, solid comeback. Bravo. Solid comeback.
Clay
Good
Harbor
job.
is next. NFL discussion.
Hello, good morning, everybody. Welcome on into OutKick the Morning. I am your host, Charlie Arnold. Now, when it comes to race baiting in sports, no one does it better than ESPN. It's one of the reasons I was frustrated while working there. And now the Disney-owned company is out to prove just how overwhelming racism really is in the world of sports. Later this month, ESPN Plus will debut a new series on their streaming platform called Skin in the Game with Dr. Ibram X. Kendi. Now, if you aren't familiar with Kendi, he is a so-called anti-racist. He's a writer who makes a living trying to prove just how racist everybody else is. One of his books defines racism as referring to policies and ideas that create or permit any differences in outcomes in racial groups, to which I think it's clear racism goes both ways these days. But that's not a double narrative you will find in this series. Instead, the first episode will focus on Black athletes who use public platforms to protest injustices and what it costs to speak up. And in the second, why Black female athletes are considered polarizing when they prioritize their mental health, just as a few examples. Now, I appreciate highlighting athletes who have done incredible things in the world of sports, whether they are Black, white, Asian, Latin, or otherwise. But using Ibram X. Kendi to lead this series just feels like a setup. Is he going to mention that in these episodes, there was an occurrence in 2016 where Colin Kaepernick wore socks to a 49ers practice that showed cartoon policemen done up as pigs? Now, this even being prior to Kaepernick's sit-down of the national anthem during San Francisco's August preseason game. Or will they mention how in 2022, former ESPN anchor and sports analyst Jemele Hill famously called Trump a white supremacist and his voters all racist? Until the documentary airs, we can only ask one question. Will it be fair and balanced? Seems highly unlikely. Now, considering the host, handpicked by ESPN, he has incited his own racist remarks against people that don't look like him in the past, so I don't see how any way, in any shape, any form, this is an unbiased series. Now, speaking of the past, once upon a time, guys, I also worked for the Fox station in Indianapolis, and I covered the Colts. One of the guys I covered in that locker room, former NFL safety Sergio Brown, who went on to play for 6 years in the league. When I met him, he was talented, he was smart, and an all-around very, very pleasant guy. So I was startled to come across headlines 2 days ago that his mother had been murdered and that he was nowhere to be found. Then yesterday, the story got even weirder. From an Instagram burner account, which seems to belong to Brown, a video was posted of Brown making some very, very bizarre claims. Check it out.
I got it. Doris. It's P. Sherman.
There's something going on with the stream. It's going
Oh my gosh. I can't. Just keep swimming. Just keep swimming. What the missing? They ain't never seen Finding Nemo? What the is going on? This is traumatic. Lucky I know how to say a joke. You
can hear him say he thought his mom was on vacation and the FBI and Maywood Police Department in Illinois had kidnapped him. This is a part of the video that you didn't see, but he goes on to make very, very weird claims. He also talks about fake news. I mean, it's clear Sergio Brown has lost it. And making it even worse for Sergio, one of his mom's neighbors told a local news station that police told him that they saw Brown through the door's Ring camera and light a bonfire to burn his mother's clothes.
Location with Yeehaw Beer and Old Smoky Moonshine. Glad you're with us. Hot Mic with Hutton and Withrow rolls on across the OutKick network. Switching gears and talking some NFL headlines on the field and off, for that matter. Clay Harbor joins us, former NFL tight end, NFL vet, and now NFL analyst. Clay, great to have you on the show, man. Hope things are well.
Oh, things are great, man. Appreciate you guys having me on.
So during the break, Chad, we have the screen here in studio, and those that have not seen Clay play definitely recognized him from the reality TV star that he became post-career, right?
I mean, I feel like, what it does to the Q score when you go on The Bachelor and Bachelor in Paradise, it has to skyrocket, right? With familiarity from people that maybe didn't follow your playing career that immediately recognize you from that. Did that skyrocket for you, Clay?
No, yeah, absolutely. It's people are like, wow, you're that guy, that guy. I'm like, yeah, I played in the NFL for almost a decade. They're like, no, the guy from The Bachelor. And I'm like, okay, yeah, that was me too. So it's pretty funny that you go on a season of The Bachelor versus have a career in the NFL and you're the guy from The Bachelor. I always thought that was pretty funny how that worked out.
How often do you get you look like someone from people that they're trying to put they just can't quite figure out, like, you look like someone, you're a tall guy, you're fit, good looking dude, and they're looking at you like, I've seen you on something, what is it? And how awkward is it to respond to someone and have to tell them how they know you?
Oh man, I don't know if you've been a fly on the wall with like some of these conversations, but you really hit the nail on the head there. It's like, wait, I know you from how do I know you? And I'm just like, I don't know. I just have one of those faces, I think. I don't know how you know me. Like, wait, no, I know how you know how I know you. And then some people actually do know you, and they're just trying to use it as like a conversation starter or something. Oh, there's some funny pictures left to tell my buddies that they got some FaceTime out here. But it's always an interesting combo for sure.
Clay Harbor, our guest, NFL analyst on Hot Mic with Hutton and Withrow. So you were playing right in the middle of the tight end era where it exploded in terms of production, treated more like a wide receiver instead of the inline blocker. And that was happening just prior to you being drafted in, 2010, I believe. Who is the best tight end right now in the NFL?
Well, I would have to say it's Travis Swift. Travis Kelce. Travis Kelce there. I mean, after Kelce, if you want a real true tight end, I love Kelce. I think he's one of the best receiving weapons. He doesn't have to block because he is that good in the pass game, but he doesn't block very much. And if he does, he might give you a half a second or so. But I like Kittle. Kittle's a guy that does both. He's a guy that can get it done in the blocking game, as well as receiving. In the past few years, Dallas Goedert, he's off to a slow start this year. He's only got like 80 yards on the season, and they really haven't been getting him the ball in Philly. But those are some of my favorite guys. Even Mark Andrews, he's a guy that has off to a slow start as well. But typically those are the tight ends that I like and have consistently done it year in, year out. Even a guy like T.J. Hawkinson, who does both. He gives effort in the run game. And I'm a little bit of a traditionalist. If you're a tight end, I think you should block too.
But I think that the those that catch the ball really well like it because they're paid better, right? Like at least that's the idea. But I'm curious though, the fact that Kelce is number one and he's 33 years old in a league that is constantly trying to get younger, and he remains the top tight end means what to you?
It means he's got a heck of a head coach and a heck of a quarterback, man. I mean, this guy's he's got a quarterback that looks for him. They've said, hey, we're going to keep these two guys together. Patrick Mahomes is a guy that's able to create some space, create some time, and to really get the ball down the field when he needs to. And I mean, you saw it in the playoffs a couple of years ago, last few years. I mean, Kelce in the Super Bowl had 100 yards and a touchdown. I mean, this guy is just really good, and him and Kelce look to each other all the time. I mean, you listen to some of the post-game shows. Kelce, when he scored a touchdown against the Bears, he's not even running the route he's supposed to.
Yeah.
He just went to a spot he saw was open, and Mahomes threw him the ball. A guy like me tries to do that and messes up. You are getting cut. You are getting benched. But Kelce has the freedom to do that, and that's one of the reasons he's so good.
It's hard to say that a team that is undefeated is showing some cracks, but I watched Philadelphia, and it doesn't quite feel the same as a year ago, but here they are undefeated right now. When you watch that Philly offense, is there something that's slightly off with that group this year as opposed to last season?
They really haven't found an identity as an offense yet, which is interesting. I think the first couple weeks, these defensive coordinators have thought, we're going to take away Devontae Smith and A.J. Brown and, make them figure out how to run the ball. They lost Miles Sanders, but then you see DeAndre Swift. Obviously, after the first week, he got like 2 or 3 touches, but DeAndre Swift the past few weeks has been great. Even last week when he had 50 yards, he did score a touchdown. He had a big play at the end of that game, getting a first down late. Swift has really stepped up, and I know they haven't had the big numbers, even though Jalen Hurts did step up last week. Don't look now, but 150 yards to A.J. Brown. Big day for Devontae Smith. Threw a touchdown to A.J. Brown. He looked like the Jalen Hurts of old. So now you got Jalen Hurts coming back on, and now you got the running game that you can use with DeAndre Swift, who looks like a guy I used to play with named Shady McCoy. Mm-hmm. That's how good he's looking. And you put these two together, and I think we're going to be fine here in Philly. I think they're going to be able to push through that. The defense has some issues, get some of these defensive backs healthy, figure that out. But overall, I don't think they're as good as they were last year. But the D-line is going to be able to solve a lot of problems, and the offensive line is going to be able to solve a lot of problems. The game starts up front, and they got the best offensive line and arguably the best defensive line in the league.
And it takes some time with the coordinator changes too, right? Like same head coach, I get it, but that does take some time to gel. October is really the truth month for NFL teams. And speaking of October, towards the end of the month, the Eagles host the Dolphins. And that's a pivotal matchup for just what could potentially be a future rematch. We'll see. But the schedule for Philly sets up well for them, and it did a year ago as well.
Yeah, I mean, you got Jalen Hurts versus Tua. I mean, they were former teammates. Jalen Hurts got benched for Tua. That's always fun to watch, to see the competitiveness there between both those guys. But I think it's definitely interesting, and I think the offensive coordinator, it does take time, but in this case, they're running the same system offensively and defensively. The calls are the same. So the only difference is for the players is, maybe a play we call at a different time. Maybe it's not getting in as quickly, it's getting in later. But I don't think that has as much to do, because you're not learning a full new system. They're running the same system. The verbiage is the same. Everything in the huddle is the same. Your calls on the offensive line are the same. So that shouldn't be an issue, especially for a team that has as many veterans as the Eagles do. So that's not an excuse. I think maybe the excuse is, from what I've seen, is you look at how these defensive coordinators have been playing them. They were taking away the pass game. You started running the ball. Now he said, hey, we're not going to let them run for 150, 180 yards with DeAndre Swift on us, and you see the passing game open up. So now they're going to start giving these defensive coordinators even more headaches.
Clay Harbor, our guest on Hot Mic with Hutton and Withrow across the OutKick Network. Last year, Deshaun Watson was not a team captain. This year he is. He's got the C on the jersey. And the storyline from the past weekend, where he's got a banged-up shoulder, medically cleared to play, decides not to. What message does that send internally in a locker room where a guy that typically, if you're cleared to play and it's just a pain tolerance thing, guys will push through that and play. I'm thinking Joe Burrow, for instance. What do you think's going on within the Browns locker room for the guys that said, you know what, we're glad Watson's here, compared to the fact that right before the game, the players thought he was going, he was cleared to go, and they end up with Thompson Robinson last minute as the backup starting?
I mean, I feel for Thompson Robinson, a guy who doesn't think he's going to play. Obviously, you got to prepare like you're going to play every day.
That's hard to do.
That's something Nick Foles, I always tell a quick story about Nick Foles. When I was in Philly, I remember a week Michael Vick was a starting quarterback. We used to have these barbecues over at Selleck's house on Fridays. We get done with Friday practice early. I'd left my iPad in my tight end room. I go to Selleck's, we have the barbecue, I go home, I come back probably about 4 hours later to get my iPad that I had left in my room to download some plays, a tight end room. I walk in there, I hear somebody in the room. They must be the janitor. So I'm opening up the door, it's Nick Foles. He's writing up plays on the wall, coverages, all the plays, everything, where he's going. Nick, what are you doing, man? I just want to make sure that I'm ready to go in case, like Mike goes, bro, you're not going to play. And, Nick didn't play for pretty much the rest of that season. But you look at a guy like him, when he did get his opportunity, when Carson Wentz went down several years later, he was able to win a Super Bowl and be a Super Bowl MVP and get paid. Obviously, his career didn't turn out the way he wanted it to, but he still did get paid, and he still had a very successful career. I think that Deshaun Watson did probably lose some guys in that locker room. I'm not sure the injury, but I mean, if it was something that could possibly get worse, you want to see him be smart and get healthy. The team needs him. But as a football player, when you're in the moment, you want to see your guy play. I want to give the benefit of the doubt to Watson, but if he's able to play, you want to see him play. You think of Michael Jordan flu game, Joe Burrow. You think of, you go back to some of those.
Or even in Njoku. Hey, one of your the tight end with burns on his face. He played in the game.
Yeah, you earn respect. If you want to win a locker room, if you want to earn some respect, you go out there and you play in those games. And I'm not sure the severity. I'm not a doctor or anything like that. But if you have an opportunity to play, he could have really got some of his teammates on his side and really backing him if he goes out there and plays.
Yeah, Matthew Stafford limping all over the place with the hip injury late in that game is another one, and an older guy too. I love that story you bring up about Foles, because personality doesn't really matter for a lot of players on a team, right? It doesn't matter for the defensive back if they're good at their job, or the offensive guard. But personality absolutely matters for the quarterback. That's a position that's different and unique. Who was the most well-liked guy you can remember being around at that position? Not necessarily the best, but the guy you remember as one of the guys that got along with people, that people and teammates wanted to play for more because he was so well-liked.
At quarterback, you're saying?
Yeah, at quarterback.
Well, I didn't have a long time there, but I was there the whole offseason and 5-6 games in the regular season before I got released and signed elsewhere. But, Tom Brady, man. This guy was, you hear, you see, like, how famous he is, how he's larger than life. And I remember the first day I walked into Patriots camp. It was in OTAs. I signed as a free agent, still the off season, and I'm all excited to get in there. First day of work. Okay, I'm excited. First person I see walking out the door while I'm walking in was Tom Brady. Now I'm like, damn, why does it have to be? And I'm just like, all right, do I say hi? Like, what do I? I stop and I go, hey man, nice to meet you. He goes, Clay, I'm glad you're here. I'm glad we signed you. I'm a fan of your work. Looking forward to getting after with it this offseason with you and, winning some games. I'm like, thanks, man. I appreciate that. Tom Brady knew who I was, a backup tight end. They'd already had Rob Gronkowski, Martellus Bennett on the roster. They drafted a tight end, A.J. Derby, Michael Williams, James Devlin, all these guys, fullback tight ends on the roster. I was just like, wow, Tom, took the time to get to know me, know who I was, and I thought that was really cool. And that's just the type of guy he was. On the field, he's fiery. He's gonna be cursing in 7-on-7 if he gets a ball batted by the kids holding the big tennis rackets trying to bat the passes. If somebody runs the wrong route, it's like, bro, it's OTA 7-on-7. He treated every game, every practice like it was a game. but in the locker room, the coolest guy, respected everybody, knew everybody, didn't think he was above the game. And with a guy at that level who'd been in the league that long, that was really cool to see. And everybody loved Tom Brady in that locker room.
Clay, final minute here. Clay Harbor, our guest. Your short time in New England, how odd is it to see what's going on there now this season?
Man, it's crazy because you never would have expected that, because I remember when I was there, it was the Deflategate year.
Yeah.
And we had Jimmy Garoppolo and then Jacoby Brissett. We still went 3-1 in that time. And I remember sitting at the locker room with James Devlin at a locker, like, man, like, how are we still winning these games? Jacoby was a rookie. We couldn't really throw the ball well. We still beat the Texans when they were a pretty good team on Thursday Night Football. And, we're like, dude, it's coaching. And that was the guys had the trust in the coaching and just knowing that Bill would put together this great game plan. My tight end coach was Brian Dable. Offensive coordinator was Josh McDaniels. Brian Flores was a linebacker coach. I mean, this Matt Patricia, defensive coordinator. This coaching staff was obviously stacked with guys that knew the game, but you just trusted that coaching. And right now, it feels like they're getting out coached a little bit, which is, to me, being in that locker room with Bill Belichick, being able to see him, experience how they do the Patriot way. I never thought that you would say that, these guys are getting out coached. I kind of feel like maybe they're stuck in a different time, and with the different rules and the different free agencies and stuff, it's just, you have to change and adapt.
Clay Harbor has been our guest NFL analyst. Clay Harbs 82 is where you can find him on social. Clay, thank you so much, man.
Thanks, Clay.
Appreciate it, guys.
Stay tuned. Primary Complaint is next, right here on Hot Mic with Hunter Withrow across the OutKick Network.
What you're experiencing is the bold taste of a Southern legend. Old Smoky Moonshine and Whiskey, authentic Tennessee mountain-style spirits. We believe in crafting flavors that were born from tradition but defy expectation, and pioneering a new experience with every sip. Because if it doesn't do this, it ain't this. Old Smoky Moonshine and Whiskey.
Welcome into OutKick the show. I am Clay Travis, your fearless leader. I am going to continue to argue that sports is one of the great unifying forces in all of American life. ESPN is a sinking ship. Democrats are now the party of the white, woke college graduate.
We live in a land of participation trophies.
You gotta lean into the turns. You really gotta lean into the turns.
When Leah Thomas walked in that first day, it got silent, and every girl was uncomfortable.
Very difficult to go back-to-back years in the NFL with the number 1 overall pick.
Is it fair for people to be upset with Barbie?
I've been out of LA long enough to have forgotten that libs, no matter how ridiculous the scenario, are gonna live. Another week of inflation, another week with Biden with COVID, and another set of losers to crown. People don't watch the WNBA on TV, in person, on a plane, on a train, on a bus, or on purpose. I mean, what have you seen firsthand of how this has affected you in the plant and your fellow employees? Under Joe Biden, the Taliban has retaken Afghanistan. Putin has invaded Ukraine. So if there was ever a time for freaking aliens to inhabit and conquer Earth, now would be that time.
We've seen coaches throw water bottles. We've seen coaches act like idiots. We've seen coaches slap other coaches. But I think if you're involved in carjacking, you're inherently a rotten human. The level of stupid that sometimes gets on our YouTube chat just gives me a headache. You're born a male, play with males. You're born a female, play with females. Don't at me about it. The American people are being cheated. We, ladies and gentlemen, are being cheated.
There's no doubt in my mind he could have caught the ball in his back pocket if he'd been running. Blowing a lead and losing a game is 100 times more lasting and painful in some clubhouses than losing the game 15-0. If I had to start a list in the last 10 years of horrible underachievers, he's at the top.
We were directly impacted by the whole Leah Thomas thing, and we were able to see you guys on the ground with your signs supporting. That was huge.
They were saying, oh, it's only 1 or 2. That's rubbish, and we all know that's rubbish. Once those trans-identifying males were able to succeed, it just encouraged others.
Old Smoky Moonshine and Whiskey. Old Taste of the Southern Region.
Our thanks to Clay Harper for joining us. Coming up in about 40 minutes from now, Clay Travis will be on the show. Also got Primary Complaint just around the corner in minutes. Stick to the Peabody location. Want some Yeehaw beer or Old Smoky Moonshine today, Chad? They've got the autumn. They've got the autumn wave of colors out here now, which means we can try the new flavors that are in.
This is the Old Smoky Fall collection?
They have restocked since I was last here in the studio.
Colors are definitely different. It was more of a summertime, bright color type look last week. Now I am seeing some more fall colors. And the answer to your question is yes. We will have that.
New tastings.
We will have that.
New tastings. Hey, we will have Tom Glavine on the show eventually. We are big fans of his analysis on Major League Baseball and so much more.
He's a childhood hero of mine, both he and John Smoltz.
We
incredibly
would love to have him on the
jealous
show.
of Dan Dockich to have both John Smoltz and Tom Glavine on his show, because those are guys I worshiped growing up. The 5 aces, the Braves starting pitching staff, the rotation back in the early 90s, 2 of the 5. Terrific players, great analyst of the game.
And just gives his honest opinion and assessment on anything asked. He was on Don't At Me with Dan Dockich this morning, a chat that we recommend you go and find and see. And he was asked about the Trevor Bauer situation now in Major League Baseball, coming from his view as a former pitcher and analyst of how Bauer, one of the top pitchers in the game as he ended his tenure in Major League Baseball, is now only able to pitch in Japan, and we certainly see what came to light with his video post about Lindsey Hill.
Did baseball treat Trevor Bauer fairly?
You know, that's a good question, and it's one that I struggle with. Like, I don't know enough of the details of Trevor's situation to say emphatically yes one way or the other. They did the right thing or did the wrong thing. My thing is always, you know, it's a delicate balance, and it's a delicate thing when something like this happens that, okay, and let's say in Trevor's case that, and again, I know something came down recently, I don't know the details of it, but let's say in a case with Trevor where, you know, you find out that there was no wrongdoing. Well, that's essentially a 3-year suspension that he's not getting back. He can't get that time back. He can't go back in time and play and be 3 years younger and play. So, you know, I think there needs to be a little bit of a conversation about, you know, how we handle these things, because in the end, there is a chance that, you know, the guys that are being accused didn't do anything wrong, or they get found to not do anything wrong, and you can't get that time back. So I'm not sitting here and suggesting that I know the answer, but I just feel for guys when they get into a situation like that. You know, it seems like the knee-jerk reaction immediately now is, oh, we have to do something because it's you know, it's kind of a hot topic issue, so to speak. But, you know, again, the flip side of that is, well, what happens in the end if there was no wrongdoing found to have been done? You can't get that time back. Trevor's been gone now for 3 years. I know he's been playing over in Japan. I don't have any idea how he's done over there or whatever. But listen, when all this went down, he was one of the better pitchers in baseball. So, assuming he's healthy and still able to pitch at that level, I would think somebody would be interested in taking a flyer on him and see if he can go out there and help their team. But it's going to have to be a team that's prepared, like you said, to take on the court of public opinion because, even though nothing's happened in this situation, there's still going to be people that think that, oh, well, you shouldn't have a player like him just simply because he was accused of something.
Let me ask you, for a guy that is young, for a guy that is, hey, he's just out there being a young dude with a high profile. How weird is it? How difficult is it on the road? How much are people coming at you, particularly women? How is that life?
Well, listen, I've said it more than once. I would not want to be playing any professional sport in today's world. Listen, the money's great. It always gets better every generation. But the things that guys have to deal with today, it's off the charts. You can't go anywhere without somebody having a camera. You can't go anywhere without somebody videotaping. It's getting to be more and more where you can't go out places without people knowing who you are and they're trying to goad you into a situation that gets you in trouble. So it's difficult. I know in my day, listen, it was, you could go out after the game and have a beer with the guys and for the most part, stay out of trouble. Every once in a while, you're going to have somebody that's going to come around and want to stir something up. But, you walk away and you leave. Again, in today's world, a lot of those things are premeditated, right? It's like people see that, hey, there's a group of guys over there that play for whoever. Let's turn the phones on and let's send somebody over there and try and stir something up and get those guys going. And, it happens, right? So I think that's why you see a lot of guys that play today, they never do anything. They never leave their hotel rooms. They're never out in public. And I can't say that I blame them. But, even in my day when it wasn't cell phones everywhere, you'd still run into the occasional situation where you're out to dinner with your family and somebody wants to, sit down and basically have a conversation with you when you're out trying to have dinner with your family. And, those things can get hard to deal with. So you imagine a situation like that now, and then as soon as that starts to escalate, there's 5 or 6 cell phones that are videotaping, and you can see where things get out of hand in a hurry.
There's Tom Glavine on Don't At Me with Dan Dockich earlier today, and fantastic perspective. Chad, as he's saying all this, I'm thinking you got to go out in groups if you're doing that, right?
Yeah.
If you're fearful of this, with all the cameras, being coaxed or trying to be trapped into a situation. And I'm also thinking about the quarterbacks who said, I'm actually boring. I don't want to be on some Netflix documentary special for a year. I don't want people. I mean, from that perspective, everyone knows Travis Kelce now.
Yeah,
sports fans knew Travis Kelce. Now everyone knows Travis Kelce.
Well, there's a video also of Taylor Swift in the suite where someone's filming her from below, and she's looking right at the person like, I see you filming me. The whole time. That just has to get so old. And what Tom Glavine is explaining there, hey, back in the 90s, pre-cell phone cameras, pre-social media, you could go out as a team and hang out. And, you might have the guy who wants to stir up some problem. You just walk away and leave. But now it's 24/7. Always someone could have eyes on you that's recording you, what you're saying, what you're doing at any time.
Think about Rodman, leaving the team.
Gosh.
And think about Manziel. In disguise, going to gamble, going to the casino.
Well, the whole thing is just, it's difficult. Not that guys are trying to get away with anything.
Right.
It's difficult to just be yourself and go out and have fun. NFL quarterback's a great example. Everywhere you go, someone's going to get their phone out and try to get a photo of you, get a video of you in some way. It's almost not worth it for any of these guys to do much of anything other than getting around a safe environment with people they know, where they know that, hey, I'm not likely to be filmed here doing something. Other than that, it's just having people over to your house, I guess, is how you kind of unwind and do anything. It's tough to get out. It's a different world, and Glavine nailed it. Money's better, all of that, but he wouldn't want it. He's glad he played when he did because he didn't have to deal with cell phone cameras and social media and everything else the guys do today. And tying that back into Trevor Bauer, look at all the evidence that ended up exonerating him. But just by that claim, he's going to lose 3 years of his career.
But what exonerated him?
A ton of money.
Texts and video.
But here's the other thing about the exoneration. Most people aren't going to see the exoneration. They're only going to know the allegation.
Yeah, through the settlement.
There's no follow-up to it. People aren't going back. They just remember Trevor Bauer. Who's that? Oh, that was the sexual assaulter pitcher, right? They're not going to remember this part of the story. So that's another unfortunate part of this.
And the story continues if he's back in the league.
And will baseball allow that?
Will an owner go after Trevor Bauer now based on all of this? Coming up in 30 minutes, Clay Travis will be with us right now. Hot Mic with Hutton and Withrow rolls on. It's time for Primary Complaint.
It's time to air our top grievance of the week.
You can complain all you want.
My job is so unfulfilling. Don't run away from your feelings.
It's time for Hot Mic's Primary Complaint.
Guys, my primary complaint this week, Chad, you were around. We were having a business dinner last week, and I took a call. I was on with a hotel chain because I just got back from Tampa, and I was trying to figure something out. And after going through the process for 6-7 minutes on the call, confirmation numbers, what I was trying to do, because for whatever reason I had 2 different stays booked simultaneously, and I was so confused with all of this. I then get transferred to a manager that can help me, quote unquote. But the problem is, when I'm transferred to said person, that person is dumber than the one I was just talking to. And when I'm transferred, all of the information and discussion and my issue, confirmation numbers and prices, nights, when I'm checking out, all of that is not transferred with me. And it needs to be, because then I go through the second process again, and I still didn't have anyone that was able to figure out my said issue. I had to wait to do it with someone in person at the front desk. That's my primary complaint.
I swear that in another life, I was Ray Kroc of McDonald's. I've been watching Food That Built America, and I fashioned myself as sort of a fast food icon that can solve all the problems of the fast food industry, and I have all the right ideas.
It's you and Augusta National that can solve those issues.
Yeah, it's like the Disney World of fast food. So my primary complaint is this, and it's very simple. It's enormous rectangular trays at fast food restaurants. I don't know why this was the industry standard for so long, but it really doesn't make any sense. Say you go to McDonald's and you get a Big Mac and a fry and a drink, and they put it on this tray that's enormous. They put it on a tray that's built for about 5 different meals to place on it. This is not practical for the individual. I recently saw a commercial with Arby's. Arby's gets it right. Circular tray for 1 meal. Perfect size to put a sandwich, whatever sandwich you want to get there, your curly fries, to put your dipping sauces, all on 1 tray that's circular. Meals are meant to be experienced in a circle, not rectangular. All fast food should go to the circular tray model, and the fact that they haven't already, and the fact that I'm the one with the big brains that has this idea and not those that lead the industry, that is my primary complaint this week.
Guys, my primary complaint is when you were sitting on the couch, you're lying in bed, and you have the remote with you. And you know you have the remote, but then you set the remote down, and the next thing you know, the remote is gone. It just vanishes. I don't know where it goes, but then it gets to the point to where you have to stand up, you have to lift everything off the bed-wise sheets, the blanket, everything, just to find the remote that was there. If you want to take it a step further, fortunately, I don't have kids at the moment, but I know they just take the remote and move it elsewhere, and then you find it 3 rooms down the hall for no particular reason. But losing the remote, it's like the worst thing ever. I'm going to go that far with it, because then you're just stuck. And so it's like, do I just keep watching this show? And that's pretty much the only option you have unless you actually take the time to stand up and find the remote. And that's my primary complaint.
That's a problem. Another problem is when the remote falls, especially like the Fire Stick remote that's really small.
Yeah, why are they so tiny?
For the Amazon Fire Stick, when it falls into the crevice of a couch. Like I've got the couch where you have the reclining, lower the seat option.
The very expensive
And then
one.
you put it next, very, very expensive.
Yeah.
Of course.
Of course.
You put the remotes next to you though, and like I put one like on my stomach, and then I put 2 next to me. And then if it falls off, where did it go? Then it gets in the crack of the couch. It's a whole ordeal. And I also like to watch TV in a cave with no lights on. So I'm watching in complete darkness, and then I can't find the remote because of said darkness.
What Chad means he's discussing his home theater.
These are the first world problems for someone with a gigantic home theater
it
like
does
myself.
help that you have the flashlight. Well, at least most people have the flashlight on their iPhone. I don't know, Chad, if your version had that feature.
It does,
or not.
actually. It's very hard for me to find on there. My problem is the scroll up function on this iPhone 6. The scroll up to find the flashlight, it's not easy.
See, I'm not for like massive phones. I like the sleek, thin, small phones, right? If I have the option of buying the whatever the next level is, the plus version of
It's
the
like
iPhone.
the Motorola Razr?
But I don't want a television remote that's the size of my middle school calculator watch.
Yeah,
either.
the tiny ones you can't find.
Yeah, I want something that is impossible to be lost in the crevice of a couch or a recliner.
I want something with a little weight to it like this.
Yeah.
Look at that. Listen to this.
Coming up, Washington State, Oregon State could be losing more than a Power 5 conference, plus an update on Jonathan Taylor's playing status.
Hey, good morning. The NFL has filed a grievance against the NFL Players Association over running backs being possibly coerced/coached into feigning injuries. That's right. Faking injuries is what the NFLPA suggested in memos to running backs whining about not getting guaranteed money. Well, let me tell you something. I don't blame the NFL. There are provisions in the collectively bargained agreement that say NFL players in general must give their best effort. Well, if you're telling NFL running backs to fake injuries, and have we seen NFL running backs fake injuries? I don't blame the NFL for getting a little crabby. Let's talk about it. Jonathan Taylor of my beloved Colts, he's out, had ankle surgery way back in November, still can't go. His agent said, however, that he could pass a physical right now. My thought is, if Jonathan Taylor could, quote, pass a physical right now, why is he on the PUP? The agent said this a week or two ago. If he knew he could pass a physical, maybe you sit out a game or two. You don't go on a 4-game PUP. But here you see Tom Pelissero saying what a lot of us were a little bit crabby of. Filed a grievance over allegations the union advised running backs to consider feigning or exaggerating injuries to gain leverage in contract talks, and seeking an order for the union to cease and desist from such improper conduct. I think Jonathan Taylor is absolutely faking. Look, I don't know. What do I know? I know this, though. Jonathan Taylor walked around pretty good at training camp. Jonathan Taylor's been whining about this. Jonathan Taylor and his agent, as I said, have already said, yeah, he could pass a physical. Let me tell you about Austin Eckler, an ankle injury with no timetable for return. Really? I coached for 30 years. A lot of guys with ankle injuries, high ankle injuries, tweaked ankles, you name it, and everything in between. And there was always a timetable for them to return. But all of a sudden, Austin Eckler, who is the most vocal of the running backs, I can't return. I got an ankle. See, ankles are tough because there is swelling, there is black and blue. You do know, but also when you get healed from an ankle and you take a bad step, a lot of times on a heel, it can hurt and there's no outward sign. It's like mental health. You can say, I got mental health. It's like verbal abuse. You can say a guy verbally abused me. You can say anything you want. So Austin Eckler, Jonathan Taylor, certainly there are questions. I did not see the Saquon Barkley injury live. I saw it many, many times on replay. I guess he's hurt. We'll see how long Saquon Barkley stays out. There are some legitimate guys that are hurt. I think we all agree Nick Chubb certainly hurt. I think J.K. Dobbins hurt. Aaron Jones seems to be hurt. Chase Edmonds seems to be hurt. But you see what I'm doing here between Eckler and Barkley and Chubb and Taylor and Edmonds and Dobbins and Jones. You got a lot of running backs hurt. Why would I, if this was in fact run like a business, give guaranteed money to NFL running backs? They just get hurt. And truthfully, the Colts just won a road football game with a running back. Zach Moss looked all right. Got into a hole. Okay, fine. There's not a chance in holy hell that I am giving money to an NFL running back that is guaranteed for anything longer than a year. I'll give you a year's guarantee. I'll give you a 3-year deal, 1-year guarantee.
Hour is here. Wednesday edition, Hot Mic with Hutton and Withrow here on the OutKick Network. Clay Travis will join us in 20 minutes. Always a great convo with a great friend and founder of OutKick, Clay Travis. On the bus, off the bus as well, later this hour. Some of the bigger rumors or possibilities or just fan base wishing upon a star about a change or maybe not a change. We'll weigh in and give our opinion on all of that coming up later this hour. Chad, Jonathan Taylor, we may actually see him play for the Colts this week. Shane Steichen, head coach of the Colts, they've activated him off of the physically unable to perform list to start the clock. They have a 21-day period now where they can use him in practice, which, by the way, he was a full participant in practice today in Indianapolis. They play the Tennessee Titans in a divisional matchup on Sunday, both teams at 2-2. They've activated that 3-week window, and that means he could practice and not do anything and demand the trade that apparently no one's calling about currently. And the timeline works out in the Colts' favor there with the trade deadline being on October 31st. Or he could play and just get paid the $4 million plus that he's due this year based on the salary and the structure of his rookie contract. So the expectation is that he's going to be activated to the 53-man roster after this practice period, this 21-day period expires. But, Chad, what if he just decides, you know what, I'm just going to play it out. You guys guarantee you're not going to tag me, and I'm out of here after the season. It improves the roster this year. The offense needs a consistent run game, and it gets him paid instead of him just playing this game where currently, according to reports, not many teams are calling the same way they were in the training camp saga that was going on because the Colts want a first-round return as part of this. Plus, they were asking for wide receivers like Jalen Waddle out of Miami.
Are we just going to pretend that he didn't say and act like everyone around him that he's never going to play for the Colts again and just a time heals all wounds type thing?
Yeah, but like everyone pretended that Irsay said he wouldn't be traded, then granted the trade request to seek one.
Exactly. This is a weird deal.
Yeah,
we got two sides coming back on their word and everything they said. It's just, well, all right.
Right now,
he's
it's
healthy,
optics
so,
for a trade, though.
Yeah, he's healthy, so he's going to play.
They've activated him, and now he's going through the motions of being a guy that wants to play.
Very uncomfortable if he's out there in a Colts uniform.
I agree.
Playing in a game based on this is not just water under a bridge. This is
you're right.
Cascading Niagara Falls type level of water gushing over the bridge that we're talking about. This cannot just be
or maybe they're working on something.
We went to our separate corners and we licked our wounds and we came back out and said this is what's right for the Colts and for Jonathan Taylor.
The quote from Shane Steichen.
I just don't think you can sell that.
We'll see. We'll see how practice goes. That was we have the walkthrough today. He's talking about today. Then practice Thursday and Friday. So we'll see where he's at with the whole issue with his foot, his ankle, and. Speaking of injuries and activation, Cooper Kupp's been on injured reserve. He's now been activated there, so they also have that 3-week window now, 4 weeks, where they can now work him back into the lineup. But that's good news for a Rams team that's playing okay, but that's a huge boost as well.
It's not a huge boost for Davies Puka Nacua Rookie of the Year hopes, possibly. Going to take some love away from him.
C.J. Stroud is also hurting that possibility.
Yeah,
currently.
Davey thinks the Puka Nacua has already won it. He didn't need to play.
Maybe,
quarter of the way through the season,
maybe he saw
says,
the script.
It's all there.
He saw the script already.
There's nothing. The guy could not play another snap, and he's already the Rookie of the Year, according to Davey. He loves this guy.
Chad, Oregon State and Washington State, are they about to lose more than just Power 5 affiliation based on conference realignment and the fact that Pac-12 is no more? It's now a Pac-2, and that's just not going to work.
I'm not saying this to patronize Washington State or Oregon State. I legitimately feel bad for both programs and both fan bases. I know we have Ryan Leaf on the show, and he's talked about some of this. It's really, if you care about sport, and I think all of us obviously care about sports. It's our livelihood, but it's a big part of culture in this country. It's a big part of people's lives,
Pride.
where you went to school, where you grew up. You're an alumni of a place. It's a huge deal.
It's who you are.
Exactly. It's a part of it's not just the fabric of the country, it's the fabric of you personally, whoever's watching or listening right now. It's what you're about. And what Washington State and Oregon State are about right now is a lot of nothing because they were abandoned by the sport. And it's not sports as a whole, it's college football. It's networks. It's the Pac-12. It's George Kliavikoff who screwed this thing up also. It's everyone else finding an out and finding a safety net where Washington State and Oregon State couldn't. And through no fault of their own, both teams are having really good seasons. They have really good football teams. They're fun to watch. These are cool, interesting parts of our country that, not a lot of people get to necessarily. But if you're from there or you went to school there or you went to games there, you're a fan, you know how special it can be. And not only are they losing out on a power conference and they don't have a home right now, I fear they're going to lose two great coaches, two of the best young coaches in the sport. And it's through no fault of Washington State or Oregon State. But these guys are going to have to make a business decision at some point. And when Michigan State comes calling for Jake Dickert, who the Athletic is already reporting, the two finalists for Michigan State are Jake Dickert of Washington State and Lance Leipold from Kansas. If 40-year-old Dickert gets the call, he's going. He's probably going to go. He's going to go to the Big Ten. Even if Michigan State's a mess right now, he's going to go. And Washington State's going to lose a great coach. Jonathan Smith at Oregon State. The moment he gets an opportunity for a landing spot, a safety net, the same one that Stanford and Cal found in the ACC, or that all these other schools found in the Big 12 or the Big 10, he's going to find that safety net at one of those conferences in one of those schools. And I hate it because they're great stories. They're great teams. They've been abandoned and left behind. These are stories that as Americans we love. We're not rooting for Microsoft to win. We're rooting for the little guy, rooting for the mom and pop store down the street. Is there any better example of that than a school in Corvallis, Oregon, and another one in the Palouse in Washington State on the Idaho border? No. There's no better underdog stories than that. And the two underdog coaches coaching them are likely to leave. And I hate that. I hate that they're going to be forced to make a business decision and go somewhere where they have a program with stability because they're making TV money.
I'm right there with you on the situation. The truth, though, is these guys would leave anyway. And
maybe
coaches leave all the time, except for Dusty May. Coaches leave every single year, or they flirt every single year in order to have leverage to get more money. Lane Kiffin comes to mind there. But beyond just the situation, it would also be a great business decision for them career-wise in the line of coaching, where you're used to just popping around and not finding that stability, to try to go after a national championship. And that would be the next tier, would be Big Ten, SEC, East Coast, what have you. That would already be in the works. Maybe even Big 12 at this point, based on preseason expectations for where some of those programs were at the top. But, Chad, the situation here is going to force their hand even more, and that's unfortunate.
Yeah, and no, you're right. I mean, Mike Price, Mike Leach, two guys who willingly left Washington State while they were in the Pac-12 for other jobs. Mike Price, very short tenure at Alabama. And then Leach went to Mississippi State to the SEC. Even going back to Oregon State, Gary Anderson, if you remember, left Oregon State to go to Wisconsin, and then it didn't work out there, and he had to go back to Oregon State because that was a better fit for him at the time. So, yeah, guys leave this program. Anyway, I hate it because –
even Cristobal left Oregon.
Well, we all remember it wasn't that long ago, a couple of weeks ago, right? Jake Dickert had that impassioned, logical rant. That wasn't a rant. That's the wrong word to use. The dissertation that he had in his post-game press conference about Lee Corso and ESPN and how they conspired and were a part of Washington State being without a home, and he doesn't like the fact that now it's suddenly a joke to ESPN that's the Nobody Wants Us Bowl when those two play. I'm watching that thinking, man, this is really cool. Young head coach defending his university, defending his guys, defending his program. And then I'm watching all this, and about 4 days later, I see the report that he's the leading candidate at Michigan State. And I think, well, that sucks. Fun while it lasted, but he's likely to bolt just like everyone else bolted on Washington State. It's hard to blame him.
And I don't know where the level is for Michigan State now based on what they're trying to keep with Mel Tucker. But again, they're not going to pay in that steep price moving forward. But Jake Dickert, through just a quick search here, $2.7 million is his salary at Washington State. And I think about Dusty May at Florida Atlantic. And he went from $400,000 to like $1.2 million. FAU did what they needed to do over a 10-year contract. And people still smirked and kind of, laughed at Dusty May for not trying to go bigger.
Yeah.
And instead of staying at FAU. Like, it's not appreciated enough, even though it's certainly commendable, where he took FAU to the Final Four, but also, like, stayed. And that was, like, what percentage chance was that during the tournament run?
I mean, everybody thought he was going to bolt.
Immediately. So.
Also, I think Dusty May is going to leave in like 2 years because he's going to have that whole group come back, and they're going to go on another run.
And that was what he referenced.
They're going to be really good. He's going to want to coach those guys again and see how far they can go again. They're not going to go to the Final Four again.
But another run of relevance
tournament team
means transfer portal options for him that he probably didn't have.
Now, yes, he could build. We talked about this at the time. Why can't Florida Atlantic be Gonzaga?
Right.
Why can't they build themselves into a mid-major that's a factor, a Butler?
Especially in that state.
A factor every year.
Where everyone else seems to be down.
What's likely to happen, though, 2-3 years from now, he's going to go to the tournament again this next year. They won't make the tournament the year after that. And then he's going to poke his head up from the gopher hole and start looking around at all the available options.
Yeah.
And he's going to leave for Indiana or somewhere else that's going to have a big job's going to come open. And he's going to be the guy for that job.
And you don't
That's my guess.
And this coach would get pissed off at this, but it's true. Coaches don't want to be Matt Campbell, where you're the it guy for how many off seasons in a row, consecutive? And now it's just like...
Now you're in a shouting match with some dude in jean shorts that's telling you that you're about to get fired.
Yeah. But Matt Campbell was at the top of any coaching search list for 2 or 3 straight years. And now you see him there, but he's 7 or 8 names down. In some cases.
Yeah.
And but I like the fact he stayed. I do. But it's just not something that's sustainable if you're doing that and you pass up the big time money. Unless you're making a lateral move and you're just doing it to get out based on leaving the program that you're leaving in shambles.
Who was
But your name stays intact.
I mean, David, we may need to look this up. I honestly don't know. Is Greg Marshall still coaching? Remember when Greg Marshall at Wichita State was the guy that everyone in America wanted to hire? I remember when Alabama made a run at him, and I think they got Anthony Grant at that point.
Yeah.
But it was the rumor that he was going to take the Alabama job. But every school in America talked about Greg Marshall, who got Wichita State, I think, to a Final Four one year.
Yeah.
Was going to take a job, and he didn't. And he even ended up getting fired, I'm pretty sure. Or if he's at Wichita State.
2020 was his final season at Wichita State.
Yeah. But that's another example of strike while the iron is hot.
And that
Even
sucks.
when you're at a smaller school, it's never a lifetime deal.
Well, the iron may not be hot enough for these two, but the circumstance is what sucks for them. But they're also getting attention because of the circumstance.
Yeah, no.
They're going to get a better job because of the circumstance, not because of their result.
I just hate that Washington State and Oregon State could sell Power 5 job. Low end, no doubt. I mean, they know who they are, right? They're not trying to mistake themselves for Bama or Ohio State, but they know it's a low-end Power 5 job, but Power 5 job. You're in the Pac-12. And now they're about to be competing with Fresno State and Utah State for head coaching candidates. And that's not to besmirch those programs. That's just reality.
Yeah.
They're about to be in the Mountain West.
And that's their option. That's what sucks.
Yeah, I hate it.
But
now that Washington State-Boise State rivalry is going to be hot. That's probably what we're likely to see next.
You think it's going to be like Utah and BYU in the Big 12?
So I didn't realize this, but I don't think we talked to Ryan Leaf about this, but Washington State and Idaho, University of Idaho, the Vandals, they're separated by like 7 miles. It's like Tobacco Road. It's right across the state line. Moscow, Idaho.
That awful dome
is basically a suburb of Pullman, Washington.
That barn.
Yes, the airplane hangar they play in, basically. But that's like you can go party on either campus if you're a student right over the state line. It's that close.
Chad, how about this? Former
we got to make that happen.
Seahawks
We need to do a show
back,
from a game at Washington State.
Marshawn Lynch says that Russell Wilson was, quote, just a quarterback to him. Didn't have his number. They did not hang out. Quote, Russ was just a quarterback. I don't have his number. And then says that Russell Wilson blocked his number. He said this on with Shannon Sharp on Club Shay Shay. Bizarre.
That's a weird move.
Russell Wilson asked
to block his number?
Yeah. And you've got Wilson asking Seahawks ownership to fire Pete Carroll and John Snyder in their last year. That coming from The Athletic.
Weird move.
And now look at their record and who they're facing this week.
And
The
Geno
Jets.
Smith.
Geno Smith.
Who knew? Speaking of coming back from injury, the guy leaves the game with a knee injury. He's out for a while and comes back in on Monday Night Football.
What did Geno Smith?
Deshaun Watson do?
What did Geno Smith tweet right after the game? Who's your daddy or something? After what they did to the Giants.
But I respect him even more now.
I do too. Clay Travis joins us next. A lot to dive into, including Trevor Bauer, and now if you come to pitch again in Major League Baseball.
I'm here at the Big Machine Music City Grand Prix, but that's not the only big race that's on people's minds. Let's go talk about it.
There's no way Biden can win again. There's just no way. Even the people that voted for him because they didn't like Trump, now at least have to see like senile, not all there. Probably won't be alive for 4 more years.
Are you a Trump guy? Or are you a DeSantis guy? Or someone else?
I don't like any of them.
Who's your dream candidate? Who would you want to run?
Myself. I think the best candidates probably are smart enough not to run.
I just hope there's somebody that's young enough to care about the country instead of their politics.
My fear is they get Gavin Newsom from California. I think it would be the new cool vote for the younger people, and that's what I don't like.
Who do you think on the Republican side would be able to take on Gavin Newsom?
Great question. As a Republican registered, I love what Trump's body of work did, but they're just out to get him and destroy him, and we won't get things done, which is crappy for me to say. I thought DeSantis was going to be the guy. Trump only has 4 years left. He cannot fix everything that just happened in 4 years. And he's going to be battling indictments and all these false stuff for the next 4 years. We won't get anything done. And it'll just be the stalemate in America. That's why I almost don't want him in. But if he is the leading candidate, that's who I'm going to vote for.
Is there any Democrat that you would vote for, consider voting for?
Absolutely not.
What about RFK Jr.?
No.
Who should our first female president be?
Michelle Obama, of course. Okay. Yeah.
I'm going to go with Harambe 2024.
We have the 2024 presidential race coming up, and I wanted to see who you thought your favorite TV characters would vote for. Homer Simpson, who do you think he would vote for?
Donald Trump, all the way.
Vito Corleone.
Whoa. Whoever advances the cause of the Corleone family. Yeah.
Tony Soprano. If Tony Soprano is voting in the 2024 election, who do you think he's voting for?
I'm going to go Ron DeSantis.
Okay, why do you think that?
Just seems like a Ron DeSantis kind of guy.
Is this a meatball joke that you're trying to make right now? What about Homer Simpson?
Homer would vote for Biden because he's a dope.
Who do you think Napoleon Dynamite would vote for?
That's a good question. I actually don't know.
There's a right answer here.
He's voting for himself or Pedro.
There's a Viking show, I think.
Okay.
Maybe that's Hulu. I don't know.
So in the Viking show, whatever the main character is, who do you think they would vote for in 2024?
Probably a goat or a dog.
I think we have one of those in office right now. So who do you think Jon Snow would vote for in this upcoming election?
I'm going to say Donald J. Trump.
Why do you think so?
Because Game of Thrones is all about about drama, and Trump comes with the drama, baby.
Would you vote for Trump from jail?
Yeah, probably. Yeah, probably. Because at that point, what else do you have to lose?
Okay, would you vote for Trump from a jail cell?
Yeah, baby, I will get Trump out of jail.
Would you vote for Trump in jail?
Oh, yeah.
Based as
The thing that Trump needs to remember is there's another political figure that said, I don't recall very well. Yeah. And that's all he's got to say.
Is there like a dream candidate, someone that you think could like save us all?
Yeah, Jesus.
Amen to that.
Sixth and Peabody, our location with Yeehaw Beer and Old Smoky Moonshine. Hot Mic with Head and Withrow rolls on across the OutKick network. The founder of OutKick joins us weekly at this time. Clay Travis on the line with us. Clay, hope things are well.
I'm doing well. How are you guys?
We are excellent.
I had a Ray Kroc reference today, the movie The Founder, about McDonald's, and now you're calling Clay the founder. It's
the
great.
founder.
Two founder references in one day.
Hey, and in addition as well, Clay, we were pumped to see this. Kelly in Vegas, who joins us each Friday, has officially joined OutKick and joined you. You'll be joining her on a new gambling program for OutKick.
Yeah, I think it's going to be fun. We're doing the first one tomorrow, and I'm pretty optimistic people are going to enjoy it.
Yeah,
we'll be breaking down college football and NFL games every Thursday right before Thursday night NFL kickoff. So the first show will go tomorrow. I've known Kelly. We did live shows from Vegas, I think in 2014. Was the first time I met her, so nearly a decade now that I've known her. She obviously did well for herself a lot of different places, but including Barstool. She's funny. Again, it's always good to hire people that you know well.
Yeah.
In my opinion, because they make good content. They work hard. And I think that I know that she's going to be a good fit, and I think people are really going to enjoy it.
Well, and she's passionate about sports the same way the three of us are. That was it. You introduced her to us on the bus for OutKick the Tailgate, and was it Gainesville or Jacksonville? I can't remember.
I love
which.
Megan making money. I mean, Kelly and
Kelly,
Vegas.
yeah.
They're both great.
Sorry, I mean, they got Withrow got her confused with it. But yes, she lives in Florida now, and was it last year or 2 years ago? I don't remember exactly.
2 years ago,
but,
we were at the cocktail party.
Yeah, Florida, Georgia for the cocktail party. She brought her dad, who is a big sports fan too, and also has great taste and likes OutKick. So you guys met her then, but like I said, we did television on FS1 in 2014 live from the Westgate Sportsbook. It was me, Furman, Carissa Thompson, I think, and Andy Roddick, which is certainly an interesting quad. But we were the first show to ever be live from a Vegas sportsbook. We had a lot of fun with it, and I think that she will be. It'll be a lot of fun. She's got good knowledge and is entertaining when it comes to talking about sports, gambling in particular, sports in general. I think, but it's going to be fun. So I'm excited to have her as a part of the team.
Yeah, absolute no-brainer. Great job getting it done, Clay. She does a terrific job with us on Fridays, previewing the weekend. Can't wait to watch the show starting tomorrow. So Kelly in Vegas, terrific addition to the OutKick family. Clay, I watched this Trevor Bauer story. I know you've commented on this a lot as well. And I think one of the more unfortunate parts of all this is that from here on out, so many people will always think of Trevor Bauer as the guy who was accused of this awful thing and not the guy that was later exonerated of it and that had a settlement where he didn't pay the accuser anything and these text messages were released because people aren't covering the follow-up to this. How sad is that for Trevor Bauer when you think about that part of this story, that so many are always going to associate with him with this, regardless if he did it or not?
Yeah, look, I think it's awful. And I think this is one of the challenges that comes with cases like these. And I've got a lot of thoughts on them. One is, and I've been saying this for a long time, I think it's profoundly unfair that we have created a world where there are almost no consequences for accusations of sexual assault that are later proven to be untrue. That is, when you accuse someone of rape, what you're basically saying is, I want this person to go to prison either for a significant period of time or potentially for the rest of their lives, depending on what the other characteristics, where the jurisdiction is, all those different things. What she said was, not only did he rape her, this was her allegation, she said he beat the crap out of her. Now, police investigated and chose not to actually bring any charges against him, so at least that's a positive. But once the accusation is out there and widely circulated, you can never unring that bell. So to me, one, if you are proven to have falsely accused someone of rape, I think that you, as the false accuser, should face the same punishment for that false accusation of rape that the person you accused of rape would have faced had they been convicted. So I think those charges should be brought against you. Number two, and I guess three big thoughts here. Number two, if you are someone who believes that rape or sexual assault are underreported nationwide, as the data reflects that it likely is the case, you should hate stories like these because they delegitimize legitimate cases of sexual assault and make many people, particularly when rich or famous people are involved, make many people believe that this is just simply a money grab and that there is no truth and veracity to it. And the third part of this, and this is part of a bigger debate that I think is worthy of being had. If we are going to say, if you accuse someone of rape, your name should not be ever publicly discussed. The rape shield law exists. Why, if you're accused of rape, should your name also not be published until you're actually convicted? Again, this is just an interesting thing for people to think about if you're going to debate it. If the idea is that merely having it known that you are accusing someone of rape is so destructive to your self-worth and to your ability to continue on with the rest of your life, why would we also not say that being accused of rape is the same thing, right? To me, if you're going to shield the accuser, that is the person who says that they were raped, why would you not also shield the name of the accused until such time as you might get a conviction? It's a media decision that you're not going to share the name. Why is it not just as bad, if not worse, to be accused as to be the accuser in terms of what public perception of your name is? In fact, if we're really talking about it, I think it's far worse to be accused of rape than to be someone who is accusing someone else of rape, right? I don't think people judge a woman who says I was raped. I think they say, okay, let's see what the case is and what the facts are. But I think everybody, almost to a man or woman, unfortunately, as soon as the accusation is made, the person who's accused of rape is immediately judged. And to your point, Withrow, you end up in a situation where you can't unring that bell. Once you are accused of rape, it is impossible to clear your name, really, in the hearts and minds of many people out there.
And Clay, at the end of last year, independent arbiter came through and reduced what was a 324-game suspension to 194 games for Bauer in Major League Baseball, who acted prior to anything, course of action playing itself out. Do you think he's back in MLB? Do you think he pitches again?
I mean, I think you should if it's just a question based on how talented he is.
Right,
and,
yeah.
And I think the answer would be that certainly he's one of, I don't know, what the top 100 starting pitchers in Major League Baseball. I mean, that doesn't seem like a crazy proposition to put out there. So if it's just a matter of talent,
and
then I think
he kept pitching too, which I think is, he went to Japan and
he
pitched
hasn't
there.
stopped.
And by the way, this is also why I've argued for nearly 20 years now. In fact, I think basically 20 years, my whole public career effectively, sports leagues shouldn't be in the business of determining guilt or innocence of criminal charges. If a sports league wants to investigate for good or ill Tom Brady and whether or not there were deflated footballs involved in New England Patriots games, that goes directly to the quality of the on-the-field play, right? If a sports league wants to test players to see whether or not they're taking performance-enhancing drugs, and if you violate those rules of competition, suspend people, I think that's eminently reasonable. That's the job of the sports league. The NFL or Major League Baseball or the NBA or anybody else shouldn't be in the business of investigating whether someone is guilty of rape or not. I mean, this is crazy talk. And the fact that sports leagues have all entered into this decision is, I think, a poor precedent that has been set. If leagues want to suspend after conviction of players for violations of the law, I understand that. I don't necessarily agree with it because I don't look to, the New England Patriots as the arbiter of whether or not a player should be able to play a football game based on whether they rape somebody. I mean, that to me seems profoundly unserious for what is a very serious charge. Whether you go to jail or not should be the question. I don't need the New England Patriots investigating back in the day Aaron Hernandez to see whether or not he should be held culpable for murder. And if he were, what would the suspension be? Like, you killed a man, you can't play for 12 games in the NFL? Like, that's crazy to me. It delegitimizes the seriousness to me of criminal charges. But if you get it wrong, as it appears Major League Baseball did, you can't ever get those games back. You can't ever get back the time that you were suspended, to say nothing of your good name. You can't ever get back the money that the league cost you by potentially conducting a flawed investigation. So I just don't think these leagues should be in the business of this, in the same way, by the way, that I don't think universities should be trying to, and I've been on this for a long time too, like a random English professor shouldn't be sitting in a Title IX investigation trying to determine whether or not somebody got raped on a college campus or not. These are broken systems, and you can believe that criminal misconduct deserves to be treated in a very serious fashion, and also simultaneously believe in both the presumption of innocence and in the criminal justice system as the ultimate arbiter of guilt or innocence in American life today, not the NFL or Major League Baseball or the NBA.
Clay, there's a couple of big-time SEC programs that aren't accustomed to having 2 losses leaving the month of September, and they do. That's LSU and Florida right now. They play on November 11th in Baton Rouge. Florida's got a very difficult schedule remaining. LSU's is tricky as well. Whose seat is hotter going into 2024? I don't think anything happens this year, but going into next year, whose seat is hotter, Billy Napier or Brian Kelly?
Billy Napier. Because Brian Kelly's already been to the SEC West and won the SEC West in year one. He's also got a pretty significant history of success at Notre Dame at a major college football program before. I think Billy Napier at Florida is going to be on a hotter seat because to me, Billy Napier hasn't proven he can win at a high level in college football. And correct me if I'm wrong, what did Florida go last year? 4-8? Am I wrong about that?
I think they went 5-7, I believe, but I'll double check.
You guys can look that up, but you're potentially going to string together 2 500 caliber or sub 500 caliber seasons back to back. And then you're going to enter season 3 and it's going to be a show me year. And so I think, look, Brian Kelly, they may go 7-5 this year. But in year one, he went to the college, to the SEC championship.
They were 6
game.
and 7, by the way, Clay, Florida in year one for Napier.
Okay. So 6 and 7 last year. It's possible that they string together another 6-6, 5-7, whatever the final tally ends up being for Florida. There are a lot of toss-up games still to come. I think they play Arkansas. I know they play South Carolina, Missouri. There are a bunch of games that could go either way on that schedule. I think they'll lose to Georgia, LSU, and Florida State, for example. So best case scenario, what is my math there? 7-5. Worst case scenario, 5-7. Probably that's the sort of universe that I would put Florida in right now. And I think if you have back-to-back really subpar seasons, you're in far more trouble than one bad season.
Clay's got the new gambling show with Kelly in Vegas that debuts tomorrow on OutKick. But you've already got the blood bank guarantee up for this week, Clay. And, well, you're going back to the well, speaking of LSU. You're going with Missouri.
Yeah, look, I like LSU Missouri the over in this game. I think both teams are going to score 30 or more. The LSU defense gave up 711 yards to Ole Miss last weekend. They gave up 31 points the week before to Arkansas and let KJ Jefferson and company go up and down the field all day on them. We saw what happened in the second half against Florida State. And on top of that, they have a really good offense with Jaden Daniels.
Yeah.
I think they're going to go a lot of possessions. Missouri moves the ball well. They have, I think, a pretty talented quarterback, good receiving core. I think Missouri will have success against that LSU defense. I like Mizzou to cover, but more than that, I like the over in the LSU at Mizzou game.
SEC's getting crazy, man. If Missouri wins this game,
I've got the over at 64.5 LSU and Missouri. I'm placing that bet as we speak.
Clay, we're up against it, man. Have a great rest of the week, and we will be catching up soon for sure.
All right. Appreciate y'all. Keep up the good work.
Yep.
Thanks, Clay.
There's Clay Travis, OutKick founder. And again, check out what's going to be a great Thursday show with him and Kelly in Vegas. They'll both bring it with great advice. We'll be following, Chad.
Yeah.
Get rich, kids.
Kelly's, if you've been watching her on this show, you know.
And she'll join us on
She'll
Fridays.
get the job done. She's going to do a great job.
Coming up on the
big
bus
get for OutKick.
or off the bus. Some big headlines, basically buy or sell. And we're starting with Bill Belichick, the GOAT of coaching, and if he's out after this season.
Hello, good morning, everybody. Welcome on into OutKick the Morning. I am your host, Charlie Arnold. Now, when it comes to race baiting in sports, no one does it better than ESPN. It's one of the reasons I was frustrated while working there. And now the Disney-owned company is out to prove just how overwhelming racism really is in the world of sports. Later this month, ESPN Plus will debut a new series on their streaming platform called Skin in the Game with Dr. Ibram X. Kendi. Now, if you aren't familiar with Kendi, he is a so-called anti-racist. He's a writer who makes a living trying to prove just how racist everybody else is. One of his books defines racism as referring to policies and ideas that create or permit any differences in outcomes in racial groups, to which I think it's clear racism goes both ways these days. But that's not a double narrative you will find in this series. Instead, the first episode will focus on Black athletes who use public platforms to protest injustices and what it costs to speak up. And in the second, why Black female athletes are considered polarizing when they prioritize their mental health, just as a few examples. Now, I appreciate highlighting athletes who have done incredible things in the world of sports, whether they are Black, white, Asian, Latin, or otherwise. But using Ibram X. Kendi to lead this series just feels like a setup. Is he going to mention that in these episodes, there was an occurrence in 2016 where Colin Kaepernick wore socks to a 49ers practice that showed cartoon policemen done up as pigs? Now, this even being prior to Kaepernick's sit-down of the national anthem during San Francisco's August preseason game. Or will they mention how in 2022, former ESPN anchor and sports analyst Jemele Hill famously called Trump a white supremacist and his voters all racist? Until the documentary airs, we can only ask one question. Will it be fair and balanced? Seems highly unlikely. Now, considering the host, handpicked by ESPN, he has incited his own racist remarks against people that don't look like him in the past, so I don't see how any way, in any shape, any form, this is an unbiased series. Now, speaking of the past, once upon a time, guys, I also worked for the Fox station in Indianapolis, and I covered the Colts. One of the guys I covered in that locker room, former NFL safety Sergio Brown, who went on to play for 6 years in the league. When I met him, he was talented, he was smart, and an all-around very, very pleasant guy. So I was startled to come across headlines 2 days ago that his mother had been murdered and that he was nowhere to be found. Then yesterday, the story got even weirder. From an Instagram burner account, which seems to belong to Brown, a video was posted of Brown making some very, very bizarre claims. Check it out.
I got it. Doris. It's P. Sherman.
There's something going on with the
Wallaby
stream.
Way,
It's going.
Oh my gosh! I can't. Just keep swimming. Just keep swimming. What the missing? They ain't never seen Finding Nemo. What the is going on? This is traumatic. Lucky I know how to say a joke.
You can hear him say he thought his mom was on vacation and the FBI and Maywood Police Department in Illinois had kidnapped him. This is a part of the video that you didn't see, but he goes on to make very, very weird claims. He also talks about fake news. I mean, it's clear Sergio Brown has lost it. And making it even worse for Sergio, one of his mom's neighbors told a local news station that police told him that they saw Brown through the door's Ring camera and light a bonfire to burn his mother's clothes.
Chad, Browns general manager Andrew Berry is optimistic about Deshaun Watson's shoulder injury, that it will not linger. How about that? Hot Mike with or rolls on.
Kevin Stefanski was also optimistic about it because he thought he should play this past weekend.
Well, he was medically cleared.
Yeah, very optimistic about his chances.
And think about it's different. The perception, at least for me, is different. If you have a quarterback final year of his contract, nothing's really guaranteed after that. But the guy's got $230 million fully guaranteed. The organization wouldn't want to have him injured if there's a likelihood that if something were to happen that it gets worse by playing.
They also, with the $230 million guaranteed, would hope that if their doctors say he should play and can play, he should play.
Yeah, I'm saying there's the paranoia of players thinking that usually comes because of the non-guaranteed money.
It strikes me as a guy who's more concerned with going out there and looking bad because he's not 100%.
Unless there's some type of injury clause or something. But again, everything's fully guaranteed.
If my coaches come to me and say, we need you, we want you to go, you at 80% is better than our backup option, and your take on that is, I don't think I'm going to play that well or look that great out there, even though I've been medically cleared, that is a soft move.
Well, and
that is a soft move, especially when you look around the league and you see Justin Herbert playing with a broken finger. You see Matthew Stafford looking like he's 80 years old, limping around the field,
right,
out of the huddle with a hip injury. We can go down the list of guys who played hurt.
There are plenty of them. And they also have a list of one player that they traded away as the backup quarterback in Joshua Dobbs, who's now playing well in Arizona, and they go with a quarterback that wasn't ready to go this past Sunday.
I don't know that Josh Dobbs beats the Ravens, but Josh Dobbs definitely looks better given his experience and his time with Cleveland than their backup option did in that game. Dorian Thompson-Robinson.
Always prepared and ready to go.
Yeah.
It's time for we're hopping on the bus. Here's Davey Hudson.
Guys, on the bus, off the bus. You mentioned it on the other side, Hut. Basically, buy or sell. Are you getting on with this statement, or are you hopping off the bus? And we're going to start in Foxborough, Massachusetts, with Bill Belichick. He's been the head coach of New England since the year 2000. Is this his final season with the Patriots?
Yes, it is. I'm buying into this. I'm on the bus on record saying I think it's the final year of Belichick with the Patriots. I do not think it's the final year of Bill Belichick as a head coach in the NFL. I don't think he retires and just goes off into the sunset and does nothing. But I do think there's friction at the very least between him and Robert Kraft. And this goes over the last couple of seasons with how they've handled certain coaching moves or player moves for that matter. And even whenever Brady was on the roster, there was always this dispute that was never clarified or verified, confirmed, that you didn't have Kraft telling him to trade Jimmy G. You know, there was always something weird going on behind the scenes there. And like Brady and Belichick wore thin, I think this relationship has as well.
I think he's 18 wins away from passing Don Shula for most wins by a head coach in NFL history. I think he's going to get there with another team because it's not going to be the Patriots. I'm on the bus. This is his last year with the Patriots. I'm with Hutton. I think he goes somewhere else for a few years, and I think he gets to that record. Big question I would have. They're going to have Brady Day in June where they're going to fill up the stadium and honor Tom Brady and put his name in the Ring of Honor. Will Bill Belichick be there fresh off being fired at the end of the season?
Well, I think
honor Brady with the Patriots.
Yeah.
I mean, we're talking about 3 or 4 months removed from a firing that's going to take place.
Yeah, I don't know, but is he fired or does he just leave?
Well, it will be an orchestrated resignation. But he will be asked to leave. Yeah, he will be asked to leave. You can resign or we can fire you. It's going to be one of those. This thing is not getting any better. This is it for him in New England.
I'm kind of deviating off course here a little bit, but we know Bill Belichick's the longest tenured head coach in the NFL. Do you guys know who the longest tenured quarterback in the NFL is? Because for the longest time, it was Tom Brady.
It's not Rodgers?
Well, sorry. Well, it's longest tenured with their current stop.
Longest tenured quarterback in their current spot?
Yes.
I would have guessed Chad Henne, but he just retired with the Chiefs as a backup.
Is it a backup quarterback?
Current starter.
Oh, current starter.
Current starter.
This one threw me for a loop.
Tannehill?
Nope. If I were to even give you the year he was there, do you think? Let's see.
Is it Mahomes?
No, 2016's the year.
What do you think, Chad? Final guess.
Lamar Jackson?
It's Dak Prescott. I was amazed when I saw that. For whatever reason, it just that one took me by surprise.
That blows my mind.
Dak Prescott, the longest tenured quarterback in the NFL currently. But anyway, guys, we'll get back on course, and we're going to be heading to Pittsburgh, dealing with another coaching situation. Mike Tomlin, things have been rocky for them. Will this be his final year with the Steel Curtain?
Go ahead, Chad. We're going to be definitive on this.
I'm going to be definitively off the bus on this one. There's no way in hell Mike Tomlin's getting fired in Pittsburgh. The guy's not had a losing season ever in his time in Pittsburgh. Even if he has a losing season this year, no way that family is getting rid of Mike Tomlin. This is not an organization that makes rash decisions. This would be the rashest of decisions to fire a guy with his tenure that has not had a losing season yet. No, absolutely not. He is not in danger at all.
There is nothing that will lure Mike Tomlin out of Pittsburgh. And there's nothing that will force the hand of Tomlin to leave the Steelers organization. He's playing for one of the best in sports. And if you are skeptical on this, of why we're off the bus, just remember what he said when his name was mentioned for the USC Trojans gig. He called it a joke. And he said there's not a booster with a big enough blank check to get him to leave Pittsburgh coaching for the Steelers. The guy's underrated in terms of where we will put him, just naming off the best coaches in the sport, because you go to either the longest tenured or the most recent Super Bowl champion coach. Anyone that McVay has, and if you've touched the cloak of McVay, you certainly get the magic that comes with that. Tomlin doesn't need any of that. And I mean, last year I thought he was going to have a losing season, and they somehow put it together and orchestrated a year that still kept that record intact. I'm off the bus. He's not going anywhere.
I would say sometimes it's just good for a fresh start after a long period of time in a certain place. And I know they've not had a losing season, but they don't have the pieces currently in place to be a contender for a very long time, in my opinion. But next
Ask
up,
Sean Payton that question.
Not your best question, David.
All right.
There's no chance.
All right.
Fresh
Either
start for
side is leaving that one.
Wow.
This next guy probably shouldn't be mentioned in the same breath as Mike Tomlin, but Matt Eberflus gets fired during the season. We're headed to Chicago, and we might have an answer on this one sooner rather than later.
Yeah. Hutton, you can influence me on this answer because you've been strong about this family never doing this before.
I'm strong on the fact that they've never fired a coach in season before. It's never happened in the historic franchise, the Chicago Bears. But this is going to happen. I mean, this is a awful situation. They've got a lot of problems there, and they are going to try to find a solution within the staff that just gets something going. Can they find a reason to keep Justin Fields around moving forward? And can they find that option with a coach that's on the staff that then takes over and rallies the entire team? Because it's not good. It's really bad. And Fields is way better than what we've seen. And we've got Kaplan coming up in 10 minutes out of Chicago to give us the very latest here. I am on the bus that he does get fired during the season, and the Bears will become an organization that has removed a coach.
I defer to Kaplan, our next guest, on his answer on this. I'm squarely on the bus, though. This should happen, regardless of history with the family and what they've done in the past. This is your prime example of a guy you fire in season. It should happen.
The Bears have currently lost 14 straight. Matt Eberflus as a head coach is 3-18. So, yeah, like you said, we got David Kaplan coming up soon. Looking forward to that. But now we're going to go down to Indianapolis. You mentioned him earlier in the show, guys. But Jonathan Taylor, he is going to play for the Colts this season. On the bus or off the bus?
I'm on the bus. I think the fact that, he's starting to warm back up to the notion, I don't think there's going to be a great trade option right now for the Colts either. I think that they're going to just roll this thing out there and expect all of us to forget everything that's been said and done between the two sides, and he's going to end up playing this season.
I am off the bus. I remain off the bus on this because the timing deadlines dictate movement. And they will get this trade done by lowering expectations of what they're going to get in response or in return. They want this first-round return. They're not going to find that. October 31st is the deadline. They've opened up the 21-day window to figure this out. And let's also just throw in, if Taylor gets dinged in a game and then decides I'm done, what does that do behind the scenes with Steichen's group? They've got a rookie quarterback. They need a run game. They're also figuring things out and finding a way to win some games here. Do they want the distraction to continue, or do they want to just get something in return and move on? Because for the last 4 weeks, it's been relatively normal. Irsay hasn't popped off. Taylor's been in the shadows as he rehabs at the facility. I'm about to hop on the bus with Chad here that he's going to play. But I still think the Colts will end up trading him based on the agent that represents Taylor, knowing that they've dug in and saying that they want more. And Irsay's digging in saying, we're not paying you. You've got a contract. Play with it. We're not going to extend you. He said that before. He said they're not going to trade him either in October. Here we are, and I think we see movement there.
The AFC South is wide open with all 4 teams at 2-2, so Colts fans could definitely...
I hope, by the way, he maintains his stance because Josh Jacobs did not, Saquon Barkley did not, and this reminds me a bit in a much smaller version of what Lamar Jackson was trying to accomplish, Chad. And instead the headlines are going to be, Taylor's demanding a trade again for a market that's just not that big. I want him to have success, and I want him to get his share of what he does for that offense. And based on what he said publicly and what the owner has said publicly about the position, I would, from the player's stance, they should be wanting him to dig in and hold firm with this. They won't. They'll applaud him for playing.
All right. Well, guys, we're heading to the end of the line, and a team that we've talked a lot about. We're going down to Los Angeles, and the LA Chargers are actually going to make the playoffs. Are you on the bus or off the bus?
Squarely off the bus. I'm not even on the curb waiting to get on the bus at this one. I'm like a town over where the bus stop is.
Chad. 2 straight.
They're 2-2, but they've got 2 coming up against the Chiefs. They still have to play the Lions. They go to Lambeau to play the Packers. They play the Ravens. They play the Bills. This is going to be a year where the Chargers do not make the playoffs.
This is the AFC that we expected last year. Competitive. Everyone's pretty much the same type of team with the same type of issues. Jacksonville was supposed to be the team that everyone was on board with by the time we got to October. They're not that team. They're basically like the Chargers. The Texans, the surprise team that's in the playoff mix. Titans are also trying to either win the division or get a wild card spot. They hold head-to-head over the Chargers. Chad, I'm not throwing them out of the playoff race yet. I'm on the bus with this because the teams that we expected to be in the way, the Jets, the Patriots, the Titans, the Jags, they're all battling at the same exact spot LA is. And above them, the Browns, who has a quarterback and a team captain who was medically cleared to play and didn't. The Steelers, who somehow right now are still in the hunt, even though I'm not buying them. Other than that, you've got 2 or 3 spots that are wide open, and the Chargers have the quarterback to go do it. I should also mention the Bengals. The
Bengals are out.
This is not a bad season to have a bad start. And remember the stat about October as well.
Davey, thank you so much.
Coming up, we get the latest on the Bears. Hot Mic with Hutton and Withrow rolls on.
What you're experiencing is the bold taste of a Southern legend. Old Smoky Moonshine and Whiskey, authentic Tennessee mountain-style spirits. We believe in crafting flavors that were born from tradition but defy expectation, and pioneering a new experience with every sip. Because if it doesn't do this, it ain't this. Old Smoky Moonshine and Whiskey.
Welcome into OutKick the show. I am Clay Travis, your fearless leader. I am going to continue to argue that sports is one of the great unifying forces in all of American life. ESPN is a sinking ship. Democrats are now the party of the white, woke college graduate.
We live in a land of participation trophies.
You gotta lean into the turns. You really gotta lean into the turns.
When Leah Thomas walked in that first day, it got silent, and every girl was uncomfortable.
Very difficult to go back-to-back years in the NFL with the number 1 overall pick.
Is it fair for people to be upset with Barbie?
I've been out of LA long enough to have forgotten that libs, no matter how ridiculous the scenario, are gonna live. Another week of inflation, another week with Biden with COVID, and another set of losers to crown. People don't watch the WNBA on TV, in person, on a plane, on a train, on a bus, or on purpose. I mean, what have you seen firsthand of how this has affected you in the plant and your fellow employees? Under Joe Biden, the Taliban has retaken Afghanistan. Putin has invaded Ukraine. So if there was ever a time for freaking aliens to inhabit and conquer Earth, now would be that time.
We've seen coaches throw water bottles. We've seen coaches act like idiots. We've seen coaches slap other coaches. But I think if you're involved in carjacking, you're inherently a rotten human. The level of stupid that sometimes gets on our YouTube chat just gives me a headache. You're born a male, play with males. You're born a female, play with females. Don't at me about it. The American people are being cheated. We, ladies and gentlemen, are being cheated.
There's no doubt in my mind he could have caught the ball in his back pocket if he'd been running. Blowing a lead and losing a game is 100 times more lasting and painful in some clubhouses than losing the game 15-0. If I had to start a list in the last 10 years of horrible underachievers, he's at the top.
We were directly impacted by the whole Leah Thomas thing, and we were able to see you guys on the ground with your signs supporting. That was huge.
They were saying, oh, it's only 1 or 2. That's rubbish, and we all know that's rubbish. Once those trans-identifying males were able to succeed, it just encouraged others.
Old Smoky Moonshine and Whiskey. Bold taste of a Southern legend.
Like that, the final hours here on this Wednesday edition. Hot Mic with Hutton and Withrow. Glad you're with us here on the OutKick Network. 6th and Peabody, our location with EHOP Beer and Old Smoky Moonshine. Coming up, David Kaplan scheduled to be with us. He's the host of Captain J Hood on ESPN Chicago. A lot to discuss with the Chicago Bears and expectations not being met, not even close, and what's going to happen with some changes that are headed their way sooner rather than later, based on the trajectory that we're seeing there.
Maybe we can get an update, too, on this mysterious Alan Williams inappropriate behavior that no one seems to be able to report on in Chicago, whether it be crime reporters, team reporters, no one.
And Eberflus his team just blew a 28-7 second half lead to Denver.
To a team that was 0-3 just like them.
To Denver. Yeah, to a team that just gave up 70 the week prior.
Team that gave up 70, a coach that referred to the previous regime as a clown show before giving up 70. He was getting into it with reporters after that game, and they're down 28-7. They come back and win. Crazy times in Chicago.
It is. And by the way, that they've got Thursday Night Football this week. Chicago's on the road against Washington, 0-4 against 2-2.
Great time for a short week.
Sure.
They're thinking after giving up that lead, best thing about this, guys, we don't have to wait around all week to play another game. We get to get right back after it on Thursday.
Well, the mini buys they refer to it, the long weekend is the time to make a change if you're going to. If you're 0-5, though, what difference does it make?
Yep.
Chad, what a difference an offseason has made for those vouching for Zach Wilson. And just comparing, thinking about the Deshaun Watson situation where he's cleared to play by medical personnel but chooses not to due to his shoulder issue. The perception of you've got the quarterback as the captain. Meanwhile, the quarterback in New York that no one wanted starting, they've got the starter, Aaron Rodgers, vouching for him behind the scenes. Robert Saleh vouching for him behind the scenes. He's not going anywhere. We'll get that comparison and more into that coming up. Right now, we say hello to David Kaplan, who joins us out of Chicago. ESPN Chicago is where you can find his great show with Cap and J Hood. Cap, good to have you on, man. Hope things are well.
Good to be with you guys. Things are well, except my football team is not very good.
So what is the number one issue? Chad and I have discussed Justin Fields and how they've used him now versus how they were using him. They weren't winning games with him being really, really good running the football. It didn't really matter, is my point. But is this on Eberflus or is this much more? Oh, he's
they're muted, it looks like.
I'm trying to he's saying he can't hear us, I believe. So we'll just pot him down and reconnect because I can hear myself now through the Zoom link. Chad, I'm looking at this situation and thinking Eberflus is going to take the fall. And honestly, it was just a bad hire to begin with, pairing him with Fields when they should have had a new coach when they went into a lame duck season with Matt Nagy.
You're good now, Hutton, if you want to put your headset
we'll
back
do it again.
on.
Hey, can you hear us now, Cap?
No, I don't know about him. I'm saying you're no longer echoing, so you're fine there.
Okay. Yeah, we'll reconnect with him.
It's
saying he can't hear.
Bad situation. And you mix all this with the worst thing that can happen is the franchise quarterback that you drafted to be the guy not getting a fair shake, not getting the right opportunity within that team because of the coaching, mixed with the disaster that's going on with Alan Williams and all that, and the weird nature of it where no one either knows or can report what's going on there. It's a bad time with the Bears.
Well, think about the first 2 years and the investments made in the young quarterbacks around the NFL. And then what Justin Fields was playing with within the offense, or the solid talent that was being traded away on defense. Khalil Mack comes to mind, but others as well. And meanwhile, Trevor Lawrence, they're putting resources around him, and it's not excuses for Fields. Fields is still allowed to perform at a high level, and he hasn't done that. But even the personnel from the coaching staff, they're trying to bring in some Kansas City influence to it with Luke Getsy.
Yeah.
That also hasn't been something that's worked for him. despite how close they seem to be per reports, Getsy and Fields.
It's crazy because it always felt like if you're going to draft Justin Fields, you know exactly how you want to utilize him within an NFL offense.
You would think so because they had the number 1 pick and traded away to stick with Fields.
And to think that they knew what they were getting with him, and clearly they did not.
Let's try David Kaplan again. Cap is back with us.
I've got you guys
okay.
now.
So does it start with Fields and just, hey, make some plays that other quarterbacks are making on bad football teams? Is it Eberflus and that hire with a defensive-minded coach after having Nagy? Like, where do you start with where we are now?
There's a myriad of issues. It's a great question. First of all, their defense is horrible. They don't pressure the quarterback at all. They don't stop the run very well at all. Their defensive backfield, when healthy, best room on the entire roster, but they already ruled out for tomorrow night. Today, they announced no Jalen Johnson, your best cover corner, no Eddie Jackson, perhaps your best safety, and your other safety, Jaquan Brisker, who I think is going to be a hell of a football player. He's now questionable to play with a hamstring injury. Add in the fact that Justin had, it looked like Tommy Waddle put it best, the former Bear who I work with. He said the first 3 quarters looked like you played it on Sunday. The fourth quarter for Justin looked like you took a few days off and came back on Wednesday. Yeah. What happened? Who's that guy? I mean, you cannot allow the scoop and score. You're going to get sacked. Olin Kreutz said to me yesterday, kid, you got to eat the football, take the sack, and live to fight another day. Instead, it bounces away. It's in the end zone. The game is tied. Then you take a horrible intentional grounding penalty, and then he misreads the defense. Cole Kmet is running against a man-to-man. Justin thinks it's a zone. He throws it to the left shoulder. You got to throw it to the right shoulder. Corner or safety steps in. Thank you very much. Thanks for coming. Have a good day. And you have another epic collapse. So they've got horrible defensive issues. The O-line is underrated. It's not great, but it's better than people give it credit for. And then Justin's got to play better, man.
Yep. David Kaplan with us, host of Cap and J Hood on ESPN Chicago. Thursday night football this week, potential 0-5 as they take on the Commanders. You've got the small mini bye here with the long weekend for the team. Is Matt Eberflus going to be fired? The Bears have never made an in-season change at coach.
Look, if they go out tomorrow night and get trucked, I mean trucked like they did at Kansas City, I guess all bets are off. We got a new president, Kevin Warren, who is he's got rave reviews from people in there how different things are with him as compared to Ted Phillips, the former president. They fired him after 5 games. Look, I was so mad at him last week. I went crazy on my recap on my YouTube channel. What are you doing not kicking the field goal? You got to take the lead in that situation with 2:52 to go, and you have to force Denver to come from behind. Force them to play trailing again. Instead, they go for it. The play gets blown up, and Denver wins the football game on a field goal. I thought that was awful coaching. And I said on the air then, if I had been the GM, my owner would have had to talk me out of why I can't fire that guy right now here at Soldier Field. Don't even get on the bus. You're done. Out. I don't see a scenario where he's back next year. I don't. But I also don't see a scenario if things don't turn fairly quickly that Justin's the quarterback. Because you're going to probably have number 1, number 2, number 1, number 3. You're going to have that top pick, it looks like.
Based on your assessment of that defense, it may not be making much of a difference, but Alan Williams, not the defensive coordinator right now, don't know how much he was really helping. But such an odd story that there is no story reported right now. You had the reports about an FBI raid at his house, maybe at Hallis Hall. The Bears say that it didn't happen at Hallis Hall, but wouldn't really talk about what went on at Alan Williams' house. You've got Adam Schefter saying inappropriate conduct led to him leaving the team. How crazy is this story, David, and how unique is it that all the reporters in Chicago, everything going on, that it hasn't been reported yet?
Well, he hired a very high-powered attorney basically the day that all the allegations came out, and then he left. And this attorney put his reputation on the line and said, there is nothing criminal that went on here. So what we're hearing and what, Shefty reported, and he's as good as it gets, it sounds like it's personal misconduct. I don't know if that's marital. I don't know if that's with somebody he worked. I don't know any of those details, and they've kept him really close to the vest, but it does not sound like it was anything of a criminal nature. Look, if Alan Williams is in the building, the defense still sucks. It's terrible. Eberflus is now calling the defensive signals. He's okay. He knows defense. He did a decent job down in Indianapolis to get the Bear job. They just don't have enough talent. They go get Yannick Ngakoue late in the summer, and he's got one coverage sack, and they've got one other sack. That's it. They have 2 sacks as a team. Khalil Mack had 6 of those bad boys the other day, and we traded him away. So it's just the front 4 here is bad. They drafted in the 2nd and 3rd rounds Jervon Dexter and Zach Pickens, 2 good football players on the scouting lists. Well, one guy played 7 snaps the other day. The other guy played 9. You got to be playing. These are your guys. So they need a 3 technique. They need another rush edge. Their left tackle's on injured reserve. They're going to get Tevin Jenkins back maybe as quickly as tomorrow, but he can never stay healthy. Nate Davis didn't go to OTAs, didn't go to mini camp, barely was at training camp. Then he lost his mom, so he missed 1 game, and then he went to Kansas City and never got into the game at all. He did play the other day and looked okay. Darnell Wright's a stud at right tackle, a rookie. There are a myriad of holes all over this roster.
And I'm not trying to, have false optimism here because things are clearly bad with the Bears. There's no way around it. But what do they have? What can you build around? For whoever the next coach is, however they decide to move forward, what do you feel like on that roster right now or something within that team that you can say, okay, this isn't all bad. We can start here and build out?
I think with Darnell Wright at right tackle, Braxton Jones will come back healthy. He's a solid left tackle. He's not the best in the league. You do have Tevin Jenkins at left guard. Nate Davis, now that he's back, I think is a solid player. You've got to get a center in here. I thought they missed on that in the draft. They can fix the offensive line pretty quickly. Their running back room, pretty solid. Roshan Johnson and Khalil Herbert and Deontay Foreman, although he's not seeing a lot of run. And then in the wide receiver room, DJ Moore's a stud. Darnell Mooney's a really good football player. They've got to get this sideshow of Chase Claypool out of here. He's not even allowed in the building this week. If you can't trade him, release him. It's a sunk cost. It would be like you guys buying cameras for your show and everything's blurry. Well, guess what? You can't keep using the cameras if no one can see you or hear you. So Chase Claypool, you made a bad trade. 32nd pick for that dude, 10 games, get out. So they do have, as I said, the offensive line. I think the wide receiver room can be fixed pretty quickly. The defensive backfield, I think, once healthy, will be pretty solid. But that front 4, awful. Worst in the league.
Longtime host in Chicago is David Kaplan. Cap joins us here on Hot Mic with Hutton Withrow. We've got a couple minutes left here, Cap, and maybe this deserves bigger discussion. But Virginia McCaskey is what, 99, I believe?
Yes.
The Bears owner.
That's correct.
When she passes, they have a lot of kids. We saw it here firsthand in Nashville. Bud Adams passes away. The 2 daughters, one wanted the team, the other wanted really nothing to do with football. Are the Bears going to be sold just based on taxes and inheritance tax that everyone's going to acquire based on the McCaskey money?
It sounds like they will not be sold.
Okay.
George has addressed that, George McCaskey, that they have set this succession plan up. And then there's 2, one just passed last year, but there was 2 gentlemen that own, I believe it's 19% of the Chicago Bears. Pat Ryan of Ryan Field at Northwestern and Welsh Ryan Arena, and Aon was his company. He's a multi-billionaire. He and the late Andy McKenna, now I believe Pat controls those shares, they have right of first refusal. If that team was to get sold, Mark Cuban could walk in with a check for $10 billion. They got to let those dudes buy it first. If they don't want it, then you can take it to the market. So I do not think it'll be sold.
I just knowing that they need stability, and I wonder once they feel like they find it, to Chad's question about who's worth keeping around, like then there's instability still off the field with uncertainty. It's in the whole stadium thing. I wish we had more time here. It's very bizarre right now with one of the most stable and historic franchises in the NFL.
Yeah, it's a mess. It's disappointing. It's sad that it's fallen in disrepair like this. But I do like this new president, Kevin Warren. He came from the Big Ten. He used to run the Vikings. Kevin Warren is the right guy at the right time.
Cap, appreciate it, man. We'll do this again, and hopefully under better circumstances for your Bears.
Yeah, I appreciate it. I'm a big fan of what all you guys do over there, so appreciate it.
Thank you, David. Appreciate you.
David Kaplan, host of Cap and J Hood. And
rough time to be a Bear.
Blowtorch of a radio station.
That is one of the banner organizations in the NFL.
Yeah,
with an enormous fan base
and solid ownership.
They've been through a lot.
Like well, we know Coach Mack very well.
Yeah,
there was stability at the very top of ownership, and those that were the day-to-day operations for the Bears were not so great. But no stadium. They need that resolved. They need the issues of all the inheritance. There's going to be a lot
movement. They just need something positive.
A lot of distractions on the way.
Some announcement that's good to happen for the Bears, so they can look forward to something.
We look forward to Ryan Spader, who's about to join us coming up in about 10 minutes or so. We'll talk with the MLB analyst, and when we come back, we discuss the comparisons of Zach Wilson and now Deshaun Watson in terms of leadership, believe it or not. That's next.
Hey, good morning. The NFL has filed a grievance against the NFL Players Association over running backs being possibly coerced/coached into feigning injuries. That's right. Faking injuries is what the NFLPA suggested in memos to running backs whining about not getting guaranteed money. Well, let me tell you something. I don't blame the NFL. There are provisions in the collectively bargained agreement that say NFL players in general must give their best effort. Well, if you're telling NFL running backs to fake injuries, and have we seen NFL running backs fake injuries? I don't blame the NFL for getting a little crabby. Let's talk about it. Jonathan Taylor of my beloved Colts, he's out, had ankle surgery way back in November, still can't go. His agent said, however, that he could pass a physical right now. My thought is, if Jonathan Taylor could, quote, pass a physical right now, why is he on the PUP? The agent said this a week or two ago. If he knew he could pass a physical, maybe you sit out a game or two. You don't go on a 4-game PUP. But here you see Tom Pelissero saying what a lot of us that were a little bit crabby of. Filed a grievance over allegations the union advised running backs to consider feigning or exaggerating injuries to gain leverage in contract talks, and seeking an order for the union to cease and desist from such improper conduct. I think Jonathan Taylor is absolutely faking. Look, I don't know. What do I know? I know this, though. Jonathan Taylor walked around pretty good at training camp. Jonathan Taylor's been whining about this. Jonathan Taylor and his agent, as I said, have already said, yeah, he could pass a physical. Let me tell you about Austin Eckler, an ankle injury with no timetable for return. Really? I coached for 30 years. A lot of guys with ankle injuries, high ankle injuries, tweaked ankles, you name it, and everything in between. And there was always a timetable for them to return. But all of a sudden, Austin Eckler, who is the most vocal of the running backs, I can't return. I got an ankle. See, ankles are tough because there is swelling, there is black and blue. You do know, but also when you get healed from an ankle and you take a bad step, a lot of times on a heel, it can hurt and there's no outward sign. It's like mental health. You can say, I got mental health. It's like verbal abuse. You can say a guy verbally abused me. You can say anything you want. So Austin Eckler, Jonathan Taylor, certainly there are questions. I did not see the Saquon Barkley injury live. I saw it many, many times on replay. I guess he's hurt. We'll see how long Saquon Barkley stays out. There are some legitimate guys that are hurt. I think we all agree Nick Chubb certainly hurt. I think J.K. Dobbins hurt. Aaron Jones seems to be hurt. Chase Edmonds seems to be hurt. But you see what I'm doing here between Eckler and Barkley and Chubb and Taylor and Edmonds and Dobbins and Jones? You got a lot of running backs hurt. Why would I, if this was in fact run like a business, give guaranteed money to NFL running backs? They just get hurt. And truthfully, the Colts just won a road football game with a running back. Zach Moss looked all right. Got into a hole. Okay, fine. There's not a chance in holy hell that I am giving money to an NFL running back that is guaranteed for anything longer than a year. I'll give you a year's guarantee. I'll give you a 3-year deal, 1-year guarantee.
Chad, coming up in just a handful of minutes, Ryan Spader is going to join us, Major League Baseball analyst and author. We'll get discussion going on Trevor Bauer and this ongoing saga. Plus, got the playoffs going on. It's here. October's upon us.
One of my favorite weeks of the year.
Where do you put March for me is my favorite sports month. But it's also weird for me to admit that because football is my favorite sport.
Yeah.
But the impact and like the buzz around one specific month. You've got October with, of course, you've got the World Series, you've got the playoffs, plus your teams are starting to hit their stride or really fall off by this time in college and pro for football.
Yeah, I would say March Madness is my singular favorite event
You're
because
leading
it goes
you're
so
leading
long.
up a bit to, and it's a lot like the Fall Classic too, where it's March and April now, where you're leading into the Masters. It's really a 4-week span of like mid-March to mid-April for me.
Yeah, March leading into April with the Masters and the start of Major League Baseball.
Spring's around.
Give me October, though. The weather turning colder, football on a bunch of nights. You're right in the middle of starting conference play in college football. You're getting into the, second quarter and third quarter of the NFL season.
You know what, though?
To me, it's perfect.
October fell off based on
postseason baseball.
Based on baseball not being a priority for me. And this season, they have done a lot of good things to get me back involved.
Your Orioles are dominant.
But beyond
too.
that,
that's the good part.
though, like the storylines across the league have been really good. Even in some failures with the Mets, like there's still I still heard what I wanted to hear from Steve Cohen, and how he wanted to approach this as an owner, and not being emotional but being analytical about whether or not he's going to keep people around. And instead, he added more people to the front office, not reduced it.
I understand why it doesn't happen, but I really wish, this is my solemn wish and desire for Major League Baseball. Don't play games on Saturday and Sunday in October. Avoid those 2 days like the plague, even Monday night. Give me Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday games in baseball. Avoid football. This is me being selfish. I want to sit and watch football on Saturday and Sunday. My Braves will open the division series on Saturday. Now, I'll be pitching in a Coach Pitch 8U softball tournament all day, so it won't matter. I won't see anything that day. But if I could see something, I'd want to sit down and watch college football on a Saturday.
Yes.
And I hate the conflict between the two. I wish it was Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. And then the weekends were football. Then you go right back to Major League Baseball playoffs after that. I understand why it can't happen. That's just me being selfish with my sports viewing.
We'll get back into baseball discussion with Ryan Spader coming up. Chad, and just the perception of image rehab, let's put it that way. What we're seeing right now with Zach Wilson is a true opportunity to do that with the next team. Because if he wants to start, it's not going to be next year in New York. And there's still, and I think the perception's fair, he's not the guy to get you there. But maybe what he can repair is behind the scenes as a leader, as someone that the team, the locker room actually believes in, trusts. He's doing all the right things in that regard so far. And what's really helped him, despite being in a bad spot where 4 plays in, he's now the starter for the remainder of the year as long as he stays healthy. What's really helped him is Aaron Rodgers, who has vouched for him behind the scenes. Robert Saleh, long before Rodgers was discussed publicly to the magnitude it was all offseason. As soon as the season was over last year, Saleh's saying he hopes that Wilson was back. And that's coming off of a month-and-a-half span where they sat him due to his comments after the New England Patriots game where he said the offense didn't hold the team back, which, they scored 3 points in that game. He hasn't built up this level of play to where he's a starter. He's one of the 32. I'm not trying to say this. But we are kind of seeing this pattern where he's crossing the same plane as Deshaun Watson to me this week. And they're going in opposite directions in terms of this image rehab, where no one liked Deshaun Watson based on the suspension and the massage therapist and that entire year-and-a-half saga. And then they put a C on his jersey, and he's a captain in year 2 for the fully guaranteed contract for the Cleveland Browns, and he doesn't want to play after being medically cleared. And Stefanski goes out of his way to mention David Njoku post-game, who played through burns on his face in the same game. That's also a way to lose confidence, trust, and not have the same type of leadership qualities that you were voted in that spot on, unlike last year where you were not, by the locker room. I just see you're certainly not building any more respect than what you may have had. And in Zach Wilson's case, you've even got Robert Saleh post-game against the Chiefs on Sunday Night Football saying, if he plays like this, we can win a lot of games. You have Joe Namath trying to backtrack on what he said. I said, you like to take back the comments. He's also playing along with the Jets theme and talking points by doing that. But, Chad, this is a great opportunity for Zach Wilson to say, hey, I'm still a quarterback in this league, and I can play the role next year of what Baker Mayfield's trying to accomplish this year in Tampa.
Well, and Aaron Rodgers started a lot of this by coming out and saying on Pat McAfee's show, let's chill out. Let's keep our powder dry a little bit here. That's former players. That's guys on the sideline yelling at coaches. Let's have a little competitive integrity about us. And when things aren't going well, let's not freak out all the time, which is good advice from Aaron Rodgers. I think Joe Namath heard that and heard the advice and decided to take back some of the things he said about Zach Wilson. I think Rodney Harrison talking about him being garbage with Chris Jones that got so much attention. Post-game, I think that's helped Zach Wilson because now suddenly he's this sympathetic figure to guys around the league. You got Micah Parsons defending him, saying that's not right of him to say. He's not garbage, this and that. You've got Zach Wilson apologizing to the team after dropping the snap. Played great. Have to bring up the point that they lost the game on the final drive because he dropped a snap and turned the ball over, but he apologizes to the team about it. Wouldn't have happened a year ago.
That's right.
And I keep going back to Deshaun Watson's complete lack of self-awareness at every turn, whether it be during all the investigations with what was going on in the massage parlors or preseason. If you remember Hutton when he's talking about, hey, you know what really needs to happen? I need to tell my team about my upbringing and how tough I had it because there's not enough stuff written about how tough I had it. Well, everyone in the media wants to write about negative things about me, but I'm going to connect to my team because
he said he did that already, but the media wasn't following
media's
along.
not going to cover that. Deshaun Watson got nothing but positive coverage throughout his career until all this happened.
Right.
So I don't want to hear that from him.
Absolutely right.
And now he's coming back and not playing when he's medically cleared to play. I just think Deshaun Watson lacks self-awareness. A year ago, I'd have said the same about Zach Wilson. I think he's gotten some back. I'm watching him on the sideline and that look of disappointment. I'm like, this is a guy who is aware of the situation, is devastated by the fact that he He ended up making a mistake that cost his team a chance to win that game. And he's going to play in a way that's going to try to redeem himself with his teammates. I don't get this sense of any of that self-awareness with Watson. That's the difference right now between the two.
Yeah, and Watson.
Zach Wilson is self-aware. Deshaun Watson is not.
Yeah, and he's not going to handle the.
Now, Deshaun Watson, when he's good, is a much better quarterback.
Wilson was not self-aware. 11 months ago.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah,
he's gained that in the last year.
And I think Rodgers has helped him in that regard in the offseason.
He's gone. I made this analogy on Monday, Hutton. He's gone from Johnny Lawrence in Karate Kid as the villain, the 80s movie villain, to Johnny Lawrence in Cobra Kai, where he's the sympathetic figure that you root for in the end. It flips from villain to hero from that to years later. That's what Zach Wilson, that's a transformation he's undergone in a matter of 11 months.
Ryan Spader joins us, MLB analyst and author, to talk some postseason baseball more. Ryan, thank you for the time, man. We were discussing some image rehab with Watson choosing not to play in the NFL this past week and Zach Wilson having an opportunity to do that now after what happened last year. Trevor Bauer, is he going to get the opportunity to do that in Major League Baseball? Are we going to see him on the mound again?
So before we get into this, I want to apologize to you, gentlemen, as I'm tardy. I didn't anticipate the traffic.
It's okay. Yeah, it's all good.
No worries.
We appreciate the communication is what we appreciate.
Yeah. Well, I do think Trevor Bauer is going to get an opportunity. I do think there will be criticism of whatever team decides to give him that opportunity. And I talked about this with not to promote somebody else's show on your show, but with Stu, I don't even know how to pronounce his name, that works with his last name, Bergeyer, that works with Blaze. And I spoke to him about this very same topic. And I do think he's going to get an opportunity, but I do think there will be blowback against that team no matter what. His reputation has been irreparably and unfortunately tarnished. And I think that he should be entitled to some damages because what has happened to him is just completely unacceptable, in my opinion. Major League Baseball did not do a good job, and they don't generally do a good job with domestic violence cases. I mean, you've had Trevor Bauer had to go to Japan to play, but Marcell Ozuna, is got a 20-game suspension or something.
Right. Yeah.
And he like nearly beat his significant other to death per the reports. My lawyer says to say that's my opinion, right?
Yeah.
But I really think it's going to be problematic for that team. And I hope that that's not something that continues on.
Yeah, I know that you've been posting about this also, but Molly Knight with The Athletic was named in a defamation lawsuit. I think that Trevor Bauer eventually dropped that lawsuit, but she and others have been silent on this. People that automatically assume guilt with Trevor Bauer, that wrote a lot about it, and then have gone remarkably quiet on this front. And Ryan, I always see that as a shame because if outlets treat it this way, people are only going to know Trevor Bauer for the bad part of the allegation and not what's happened since then, right?
So I don't know Bauer personally, but I do. I am friends with his agent, Rachel Luba. I don't want to put words in her mouth or his mouth, but I'm inclined to think if, Molly Knight was just like to apologize, he would accept it. That's my perception of the situation. And I think that they're making a mistake by doing so. Is pretending like, it's never happened and blocking the ace of Spader on Twitter, fixing the problem. Is that a solution? Not in my perspective. So I don't think that they're handling it correctly in this particular situation. One other thing I want to throw as an aside, I also apologize for doing this in my kitchen. I have a basement studio,
You're fine.
But I was
apologies.
rushing.
You're fine.
good, man.
You're on our
rushing
show.
to get on the phone.
We appreciate it.
Ryan Spader, our guest, looking on the diamond, anything surprise you from the start of the postseason?
The Twins did. They finally won a postseason game. Congratulations, Twins. They didn't really, I don't want to say they surprised me, but the fact that they didn't disappoint me was surprising. Pablo Ozuna, I think, is one of the best pitchers in baseball. He's significantly underrated, and ever since he figured out how to strike guys out, he's been a dominant force. I think that this is one of the true trades in history, sending Ozuna to the Marlins for Arias. I think it's one of the true trades in history that both teams benefited. And going from that, though, I'm sure you guys could tell from my voice, I'm from Philly. I'm pulling for my Phillies, and I was really impressed with the showing of the fans. They immediately picked it back up from last year, and the team looked very sharp. They feel energized, so I'm fairly confident in the Phillies' ability going forward. And should they end up facing the Braves, I think the Braves are going to have their work cut out for them. Yeah. I know they're the best team overall in the regular season. However, I don't know that they're necessarily built for a postseason. We saw this for years with Dodger teams that would win 105, 107 games, and then they get to the postseason and they're out in the first round. The reason for that is because this is a team that is built for 162. And I truly believe that the reason they won that World Series when they finally did was because the season was only 60 games. And I don't think if it went 162, they would have been able to complete the job and win that World Series.
The Ace of Spaders, where you can follow Ryan Spader on social, MLB analyst. Ryan, thank you so much, man. And we'll catch up soon. More coming on Hot Mike with Hutton and Withrow.
I'm here at the Big Machine Music City Grand Prix, but that's not the only big race that's on people's minds. Let's go talk about it.
There's no way Biden can win again. There's just no way. Even the people that voted for him because they didn't like Trump now at least have to see like senile, not all there. Probably won't be alive for 4 more years.
Are you a Trump guy? Or are you a DeSantis guy? Or someone else?
I don't like any of them.
Who's your dream candidate? Who would you want to run?
Myself.
I think the best candidates probably are smart enough not to run.
I just hope there's somebody that's young enough to care about the country instead of their politics.
My fear is they get Gavin Newsom from California. I think it would be the new cool vote for the younger people, and that's what I don't like.
Who do you think on the Republican side would be able to take on Gavin Newsom?
Great question. As a Republican registered, I love what Trump's body of work did, but they're just out to get him and destroy him, and we won't get things done, which is crappy for me to say. I thought DeSantis was going to be the guy. Trump only has 4 years left. He cannot fix everything that just happened in 4 years. And he's going to be battling indictments and all these false stuff for the next 4 years. We won't get anything done. And it'll just be the stalemate in America. That's why I almost don't want him in. But if he is the leading candidate, that's who I'm going to vote for.
Is there any Democrat that you would vote for, consider voting for?
Absolutely not.
What about RFK Jr.?
No.
Who should our first female president be?
Michelle Obama, of course. Okay. Yeah.
I'm going to go with Harambe 2024.
We have the 2024 presidential race coming up, and I wanted to see who you thought your favorite TV characters would vote for. Homer Simpson, who do you think he would vote for?
Donald Trump, all the way.
Vito Corleone.
Whoa. Whoever advances the cause of the Corleone family. Yeah.
Tony Soprano. If Tony Soprano is voting in the 2024 election, who do you think he's voting for?
I'm gonna go Ron DeSantis.
Okay, why do you think that?
Just seems like a Ron DeSantis kind of guy.
Is this a meatball joke that you're trying to make right now? What about Homer Simpson?
Homer would vote for Biden because he's a dope.
Who do you think Napoleon Dynamite would vote for?
That's a good question. I actually don't know.
There's a right answer here.
He's voting for himself or Pedro.
There's a Viking show, I think.
Okay.
Maybe that's Hulu. I don't know.
So in the Viking show, whatever the main character is, who do you think they would vote for in 2024?
Probably a goat or a dog.
I think we have one of those in office right now. So who do you think Jon Snow would vote for in this upcoming election?
I'm going to say Donald J. Trump.
Why do you think so?
Because Game of Thrones is all about drama, and Trump comes with the drama, baby.
Would you vote for Trump from jail?
Yeah, probably. Yeah, probably. Because at that point, what else do you have to lose?
Okay, would you vote for Trump from a jail cell?
Hell yeah, baby. I will get Trump out of jail.
Would you vote for Trump in jail?
Oh, yeah.
Based as
The thing that Trump needs to remember is there's another political figure that said, I don't recall very well. Yeah. And that's all he's got to say.
Is there like a dream candidate, someone that you think could like save us all?
Yeah, Jesus.
Amen to that.
If you haven't taken your shot with PointsBet, now is the perfect moment. Here's the big reason why. Exclusively for first-time PointsBet users, grab this unique offer. Right now, new PointsBet users can get up to $1,000 in second-chance bets. If your first bet doesn't go as planned, PointsBet has your back with a second chance. You get this offer by visiting OutKick.com/bet. OutKick.com/bet is where you go to complete the registration process with PointsBet, and then you make your first bet. If your first bet happens to lose, Chad, in case you don't know what the second chance is.
What is a second chance?
If your first bet happens to lose,
please.
that's when the second chance bets come into play. Remember, terms and conditions apply. You got to be 21 or older in legal gambling states. Gambling problem, 1-800-GAMBLER. OutKick.com/bet. 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 Speaking of betting, Clay Travis and Kelly in Vegas start a new program tomorrow that will allow us to get rich.
Absolutely. Speaking of sports gambling, someone threw this open in the YouTube chat. We're discussing Alan Williams. They said, what if it's gambling related?
Well,
why no one's commenting on it?
Well,
that it's a sports betting related inappropriate activity. And the feds would be involved with that.
Well, that would be.
Look, there's no. I have no evidence
why would
of that.
HR with the Bears be involved with that?
Well, I don't know that HR. They said internal. It could be
no,
internal.
They said an HR matter was the report from Schefter.
There's also not.
But it wasn't criminal.
It
wasn't criminal. It was. It was what was what was the word they used? It wasn't criminal. It was
inappropriate
conduct. But I mean, so.
But I'd never heard that. I'm thinking, well, I guess that could be part of it. It's not criminal to bet on sports, but could that be an issue?
There's a criminal investigation in the state of Iowa where all kinds of information is out there about the quarterbacks and others who have bet on games.
Yeah, I've said this since that story popped. Every program that's in a state where legalized online sports gambling is allowed, you should be on alert. That you just pray that it's not you. That someone finds this out about your program.
It's like all of the fan bases that laugh and mock those. Not now. It's what used to happen about paying players or illegal recruiting situations or attempts. And it's like, well, don't laugh so much because it could be around the corner for your said program as well.
Speaking of the NCAA, props to the NCAA. They met today. Board of Governors got together.
Yeah.
They've got new laws. They're still hard at work. For everyone that thought that they're dead, oh, no. They're very much alive. Cue The Undertaker rising from the dead and getting up. That is the NCAA right now. They've got new rules like instead of 45 days to enter the transfer portal at the end of a season, you have 30 days now to help out the coaches. And, Hutton, as of today, photo shoots from the school no longer allowed on unofficial visits. Only official visits. Can't get your photo taken professionally
as if
when you're unofficially visiting a school.
That's the benefit that puts Bama or Georgia over the top.
It is the definition of busy work. That's what this is.
Well,
busy work. Let me look like I'm affecting something.
You know what's worthless is number one, the bill that for NIL legislation that is more or less the rules that were in place prior to July of 21.
Yeah, let's
That's
just go
number
back.
one.
We're
That's
going to
number
go
one.
in reverse.
And then here we are sitting here in 2020. They're proposing this as federal legislation, and it's the same structure that the NCAA that would do practically anything to have federal legislation. They stepped away from and said individual states, abide by your state laws, abide by your university policies and your program to program, or your conference. They'll police you. They'll structure guidelines for it. And now all of a sudden it's like, oh, we'd like to go back to this rule book that we didn't enforce to begin with. We stepped away from. That's number one. Number two, they're mentioning photo shoots and what else? The calendar dates are shrinking a bit on when you can enter the portal.
Yeah, 45 days to 30 days.
This is the kind of crap they were doing with the previous rules and structure that they actually tried to enforce instead of, debapping and stepping back and saying everyone else handle this because we can't enforce our own policies. This reminds me of pre-July 21 type crap. What difference does it make if you have a photo shoot now? Nothing.
No.
Nothing.
It's not the photo shoot that's going to put it over the top.
No, it's not, Chad. It's whether.
No, I think there's other things.
Can some programs offer cashier's checks? Is that the thing?
There's some things that do put it over the top that I'm sure are being investigated in some way, but it's not the professional photography shoot. Every time I think about the photo shoot on a recruiting visit, I think about the Florida Gators dad in the full uniform. That image is burned in my cortex forever.
But also the fact that any program would have set them up with that. Behind the scenes at Florida that day, it was like, can you believe this dude they're going to pose together in full pads?
Something else that's always funny, Hutton, always funny. There's a great Fly on the Wall, a podcast I listen to with Dana Carvey and David Spade. They had this great story about how Christopher Walken at SNL one time would just talk about how bear suits were funny. They were trying to come up with ideas for sketching. He said, we need a bear suit because bear suits are funny. Something else that's always funny, grown men in full baseball uniforms, like old men, managers. I'm watching Rob Thompson, the manager for the Phillies last night, do an interview. And I'm like, not that he's that old, but he's older. And anytime there's an old man, especially if they have a little belly and they're wearing, if you want a sign that this is a child's game that adults are playing, look at an old man in a full baseball uniform, cleats, pants, jersey, belt, everything. And look how ridiculous it looks. It looks like they're dressed up for Halloween and they're going to go door to door trick-or-treating. And I love it. It never gets old. Old men in full baseball uniforms, always
it's
funny.
funny, but it doesn't make sense.
Always funny.
It's like, why is that the one sport where you wear what the players are wearing?
Tommy Lasorda, full baseball uniform, full Dodgers uniform.
Bobby
funny.
Cox.
Bobby Cox, little boiler on him, little belly, run out there to argue a call. Always funny.
You're right.
I don't like this. I know Gabe Kapler got fired in San Francisco. I don't like these like studly, fresh out of the major league guys that are managing that just look like another Major League Baseball player manager. I want old, fat men in full baseball uniforms. Yeah. Let's return to
the
that.
Traditionalist.
Let's not worry about return to 2021 NCAA rules. Let's return to all Major League Baseball managers being over 60 and overweight. That's what I want. More full uniforms for those guys, please.
Chad, Urban Meyer.
Not too much to ask.
Not returning to coaching anytime soon. Dan Dockich joined us, 2 weeks ago?
Yeah, he was adamant.
He's like, no, not Michigan State.
Absolutely not.
Well, now Bruce Feldman is saying that that's also 100% accurate because Feldman talked with Urban Meyer, and no, he's not in the mix for the Michigan State job.
I love that Feldman even put reports in quotation marks. These reports about Michigan State.
Which is just someone's list.
Or it's some, blogger boy that posted it. I'm hearing that Urban Meyer has serious interest in the job here at Michigan State. Bruce Feldman came off the top rope. Bruce Feldman, by the way, who works for Fox and works with Urban Meyer, could easily go to him and hear from him. Oh, he's loving working at Fox Sports.
Has no interest in that.
Not interested.
Not interested.
I believe this report, by the way.
Yes.
I believe that Urban Meyer still may coach again somewhere if the perfect job opens up in college, not the NFL, not that he would have an opportunity. but maybe he'll coach again in college. It's not at Michigan State. Not now, not at Michigan State.
What type of job would be perfect, though? Like Michigan State, you're right, not that. Northwestern, no.
USC,
but
Lincoln Riley going on to the NFL.
Yeah.
I could see that.
But they've had those opportunities before.
Return to Ohio State when
and he turned them down.
Ryan Day takes the Bears job that we've talked about forever.
Back to Florida.
Ryan Day so pissed off about Lou Holtz that he's going to leave college football. You know what? Lou's right. We're not physical enough. I need to go to the NFL. Sharpen my skills.
Yeah, I did have this discussion with Logan, Ryan, and a couple of others who were at his event about the Florida job and what happens with the next hire. And Dion came up.
With Billy Napier?
With Billy Napier.
Oh,
yeah,
man.
And Dion came up.
That would be a nightmare.
And the discussion,
that's a nightmare for the rest of the SEC.
The discussion turned from, okay, what's realistic to how much does Dion want to put it to Florida State by taking that job? Now, again, all hypothetical. It's just bar talk. But that's, I mean, would he hate the Seminoles that much to where when they didn't give him the opportunity initially when he wanted it, that he would go to the Gators and coach there? Mainly based on that. The money on any opportunity is going to be virtually the same for him. If he's in the mix and he wants a job now, he just names the price and you either pay or you don't. If Florida were to pony up and do that, would he take it just based on the Florida State aspect of it?
I don't think it'd have anything to do with Florida State. I think it would just be an opportunity that he would take.
But he also
there's plenty of guys who end up coaching at their rival.
He did turn down. I think it's interesting though. He turned down South Florida. I believe that was it, right? South Florida instead. He went to Colorado. There were two schools. There was one in Florida, one, of course, Colorado. He chose Colorado over.
It would have
his
been
home
South
state.
Florida timeline wise.
That's it then, because he had both options and he took Colorado instead of his home state of Florida, where the perception was. He goes there, and the perception is he's winning at a much higher rate faster. And he's doing it now at Colorado anyway. But he would do it in the state of Florida where he's going to dominate recruiting. Again, that was just the base floor perception of what was being considered.
Well, I asked Clay about this, and I agree with Clay, by the way. It will probably be Billy Napier that'll have the hotter seat because Brian Kelly did get hot last year in year one and win the SEC West.
And we're also assuming that LSU continues to win more than they lose.
Yeah, they're going to win more than they lose. And I'm also assuming that LSU beats Florida in Baton Rouge in November.
Right.
When they play head-to-head. But the good graces and goodwill that Billy Napier got for beating Tennessee at home kind of got negated, not by Hutton. What's the line? Not if you lose, how you lose.
I believe in that.
You lose by a field goal or lose by a touchdown to Kentucky in a close back-and-forth game. Whatever. You lost a road game in the SEC. Not the end of the world.
3 straight years.
Program still respectable.
That's crazy still.
But lose a third straight and to get just face planted.
Yeah.
I mean, Kentucky did to Florida kind of what Florida did to Tennessee in the first half. In that second quarter, really. Florida's played one amazing quarter of football so far this season.
That's
and
it.
outside of that, they are kicking a field goal up 12 on Charlotte. With 2 minutes left in the game to win by 15.
Not in the game against Utah.
They get physically beaten up by Utah. Kentucky did anything they wanted against them. Ray Davis had a historic day running the ball on the Florida defense.
They outrushed Florida 329-69.
It's not good. Now, they're recruiting well. I think they're top 5 nationally right now in this next year's class. And they got time to win a couple big games this year, but that schedule's really difficult.
Florida has players that were pointing to the kickoff time as the reason why they suck so bad.
It's not going to happen.
Third straight loss to Kentucky.
It's not going to happen because I think Vandy's just really, really bad. But if he lost 2 in a row to Vandy and they lost at home to Vandy this weekend and got upset, it's going to get real loud from Florida fans.
Napier
real
is
loud.
1-8.
There's going to be a lot of people saying, pull the plug now. This guy can't win at this level.
He is 1-8 in road or neutral site games.
Yeah, whether that's fair or not, and I don't think it is this early into year 2, people are going to have their minds made up. I mean, think about that. That'd be 3 straight losses to Kentucky and 2 in a row to Vandy.
And 4 of 6 lost. They've lost the last 4 of 6 to Kentucky.
But they still own Tennessee at home.
Which is crazy.
Can always hang their hat on that.
I lose money every year on that, Joe.
They can hang their hat on that one.
Every year.
At least at home. Tennessee's won a couple in the last 6 years in Knoxville, but they own that series, no doubt.
Tennessee with the week off, and then A&M.
Hey, that could be it's already the CBS.
And now they have Bama this weekend.
2:30 Central Time game, but if they beat Bama and you've got 2 one-loss teams going head-to-head in Knoxville, cue up the CBS theme music for that game. It'll be a big one.
Bama seems to have found something right.
I think
so is A&M.
I think Bama wins, but I think it's going to be a
low-scoring.
I think it's going to be a war
slog.
Defensively. Yes, 2 defensive lines that are going to get after it in that game.
Jalen Milroe now 27 for 33, 389 yards in the last 2 starts.
They got something.
They figured something out. And look, Texas looks elite right now, so losses for Saban aren't acceptable, but it seems more and more like Alabama's just a notch below, not 3 or 4. We're back at it tomorrow, 3 to 6 p.m. Eastern. Hot Mic with Ed and Withrow.